the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. The Center for Disease Control is reporting the outbreak of a new virus strain that is causing the infected to become extremely vicious.
On the west side, we're gonna do it to the east side, and we're gonna prove once and for all that all these people talking about the East Coast, West Coast war, they like the Judas was to Jesus. They only here to cause confusion.
We walked down the street to run it. It was just like in America. It was like incredible.
I get your order.
I didn't have no problem with Rich making $1,000, $2,000 off of me, because I was coming to spend $300,000-$400,000 with him.
Plus, we do a lot of cutting and shooting of each other, though we profess to be nonviolent.
We got you women now. It ain't nothing we can't do today. But these things the dog got. I see dogs on television eating out of the same plate with white people. I see dogs in the buses, and they do everything with the dogs. So I ain't getting nothing the dog ain't got.
Wrong, because it's pig action. See, they're doing exactly what the pigs want them to do.
Welcome the efforts of concerned citizens of all ages to stop the abuse of our environment.
Is be true to what you said on paper.
To Africans, to slaves and freedmen, coming over to the faith with some earnest.
Maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions.
Now, there's no biographical sketch, but I meet him on the day of the crucifixion.
Black married couple families, more than a quarter of a century, every single year, at a poverty rate under 10%.
We shouldn't even be stigmatized with the word welfare.
Searching for weapons without search warrants in one of America's most dangerous public housing projects, the Robert Taylor home.
Nothing else to do but sell drugs because they ain't got nothing to do.
Peace. What's going on? Thanks everybody for pulling up to another episode of The Narrative. Tonight we'll be talking about the gatekeepers of success. We want to expand on the Katt Williams conversation and not just talk about the industry, but just gatekeepers in our culture overall, from academia to corporate America, in different aspects of our culture that, we feel like we might have to go through certain initiations or lack thereof for progress, or sometimes keep us from progression. A lot of people may come in our lives and certain channels we got to take to get to where we need to go. And sometimes everybody's not built for that path. And sometimes they can hold back some of our most talented people and propel people who are not so talented. So tonight we're going to have the discussion. I want to introduce my illustrious panel. We have Fire CJ in the building. We got Prince Mazzani in the building.
Peace.
We got Sean Bolden in the building. And we got my girl Key in the building. And of course, we cannot forget my man Red Pill in the building. Appreciate you showing up. So everybody just take a second to just introduce yourself to the audience. We're going to start with CJ. Peace, brother. Let everybody know who you are and what you're about.
All right, so what's going on, man? It's your guy 5100 CJ, aka the Pookie Hybrid. Out of Memphis, Tennessee, man. What I talk about, what I'm about, is a black family, first and foremost. And I represent men being fathers, being stand-up men. So that's what I do over on my channel. And my guy, Ted's the Fight with the 500 podcast. We both just the same guys coming with the same goals. So that's what I do over there.
Peace. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. Sun God, it's on you, baby.
Peace. What up, y'all? I want to say shout out to everybody on the panel. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely a pleasure being here with y'all. I go by the name of Prince Mazzani, aka Sun God. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I do a bunch of things in the community. I have a holistic health shop, got a vegan restaurant, got my own alkaline spring water. That's my phone going off, my bad. But yeah, I try to, I'm a selfless person, and I try to just teach as I learn. I'm a student, but I'm also a teacher, and vice versa. So that's all I'm about.
Bet. Key, it's on you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Health is Key, also known as Tori Key. I have a show called Health and Hip Hop. And what I specialize in is helping busy women. I'm a nutritionist and a personal trainer. And I help busy women learn how to remain healthy, while they keep their mental intact, their spirit intact. And as well as I love helping hip hop artists remain healthy on the road and teach them, just how to live longer and how to preserve energy in the proper way. So yeah, health and hip hop and health is my thing. Thank you, E, for having me on here because I've been trying to get on the panel for a long time without over pushing for it. So I appreciate you allowing this to be the space thing at the time it's supposed to be. So I appreciate you.
No problem. Appreciate you. Sean, it's on you, man.
What's going on? My name is Sean Bolden. Brooklyn origin, born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn, live out here in California, been in the industry for probably about 30, 35 years, on and off. Been everything from an artist to an executive. So, but more importantly, I'm a father, man of God, and just like who pushes for fairness as well as to broaden our perspectives. That's it.
Awesome. Last but not least, Red Pill, it's on you.
Peace, family. Brother Red Pill reporting live and direct. All right, one half of the Twin Pillars. The founder of Know the Ledge Media, KTL Radio. Know the Ledger is our newest endeavor. We actually have a hedge fund that we're about to launch in alignment with this Bitcoin ETF. I'm also I'm down with the hood as well, the biggest hood in America and the biggest hood in the world, and that's fatherhood. I'm a father of 3, an advocate for fatherhood connections, fatherhood clubs, even a fatherhood community. All right. We have a lot of things that we're going to be doing in 2024, but what we're mostly going to be doing is campaigning all 2024, the same way that Donald Trump and Joe Biden is campaigning. We getting on the campaign trail, and we're gonna be bringing solutions. And the acronym that we'll be running on is FACTS, and that's food, art, clothing, technology, and shelter. Yeah,
that's dope. Well, thank you guys for introducing yourself. You all sound like you're into some amazing things that we all can benefit from. Me personally, I don't know if everybody's familiar with my content or not. I know, this is something I fell into based on that viral moment, but I always wanted to talk on different perspectives and be able to bring different people and different mindsets together. And like I said, it's deeper than just a man and woman thing. I'm more of a person who likes to talk about how we got here and try to find some solutions instead of just keep talking and arguing about the current state of things, because we all know that we didn't just get here overnight, and we're definitely not going to get to the next level at odds with each other. So we can agree to disagree, but eventually we got to figure out how to way to do this together, and we got to do it with love and understanding. So I appreciate you guys for coming on. Let's get started. I want to play one of the clips, and we could just get the conversation going, you guys. So let's get into it.
Blackball. Because in 30 years I've done nothing but collect information, knowledge, and your secrets. So if you and a man was in a corner doing something you wasn't supposed to be doing, gather that. I value that. I'll pay for that. Come, tell me. I know so many things I shouldn't know. The truth is the light.
I need to have another one of these.
Amen.
Gee.
Shout out to Katt, man. Shout out
to Katt, man. Shout out to Katt. So, what's y'all initial reaction to when that video? Like, how did y'all feel about what he said and things like that. It's whoever want to take the floor, go ahead.
Hey, when he started talking about people's wives, you know what I'm saying, that was a little out of control, but I feel him. Katt Williams is a Virgo, I'm a Virgo, and I feel him on his perspective. I wouldn't have went so much into their wives because, a man to get crazy, you talk about his wife and his family, but I feel him in what he's saying. You know what I'm saying? And the year of exposure, a lot of things is getting exposed and brought to the light. I feel him on that as well. That's happening in the hood. That's happening in the communities. And it's also happening in Hollywood. So, it's a universal thing at this point. It's happening all over. So I definitely feel him on that.
I think that Katt Williams went super viral because he caught lightning in a bottle. He is right on time. His conversation, just him as a quote unquote forgotten individual, an underdog. He came right on time. He represents the energy that people are looking for in 2024, which is basically everybody knows that something is wrong. Everybody knows that inherently, shit is not what it's supposed to be. The math ain't mathing, and he's doing a good job with exposing things. Prior to that, it was Yeezy or Ye, right? And what's taking place is, a level of shock and awe. You know what I'm saying? The information or the exposure is coming out, and it's coming out heavy. You know what I mean? And people definitely have to be ready to deal with it and not just look at it as something that's salacious, some tea and whatnot. Because theoretically, if you don't do anything about it, you just normalize it and you accept it after a while.
Exactly. Sean, how you feel about that, Sean?
Well, first off, I agree with a lot of things he said. I love the entertainment part as far as throwing in the wives, because I took that as the entertainment part. And it was something that I didn't even actually recognize or realize. And y'all Virgos, as you mentioned, y'all have a tendency to recognize things that we just don't see sometimes. And so that was a very enlightening point that he made. And there was a lot of facts to what he's been saying, and he ended it off properly. The light is coming. The light is being shed, and it's coming to light. And I'm not opposed to it. It's been that way with several people in my generation and beyond. So now that Katt is doing it, and there's been others who have done it. Y'all mentioned Ye, of course, Farrakhan in worldly matters. There's a whole list of people who do it, but comedians have the best threshold to do it because they can speak the truth through comedy.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, my co-host has finally arrived, so I would like to give her a chance to introduce herself to people who are not familiar with her. Lucky, what's going on? You got the floor.
How are you guys? I was having technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Well, I'm Lucky. Thank you guys for continuing this conversation. It's not too much. You'll get to know me as we have this conversation.
Cool,
nice to meet you.
Cool. No doubt. Tori, Key, you want to add anything to this conversation?
Yes, I wanted to piggyback on the timing comment. The timing.
Veggie back. I'm sorry.
We
veggie back. We camo back and veggie back.
My bad. You're right. You're right. I'm about to use that now. Veggie back. So let me restate that. I wanted the veggie back on the timing. The timing was perfect for three things, right? One, in a world where social media has people confused of whether they believe in yourself or not, because let's say you got a day where you're not really feeling 100% yourself, and then you check Instagram and it can make you feel like you're lacking. And so I think that Katt Williams did a great job on showing you how he came up and how giving and how being yourself is always going to be top notch at the end of the day, regardless of what path you take. And I think that is going to help a lot of people be able to say, okay, I need to give, I need to do more, I need to push a little harder. Look how, I need to start studying, I need to get a routine. So that was number one. But number two, as far as the timing, right, when we talk about the Diddy situation, right, it's like a couple months ago, you had a whole catastrophe, right, of information, and nobody came and defended this man, and on top of Katt, which the timing is perfect because it's the same kind of whirlwind But like you really have people backing up not only the facts, but then you have people saying like, "Yo, he gave me this, he gave me that, he gave me this," and so I just think it's gonna open up just a whirlwind of belief in people, sharing, giving, and on top of that, like a lot of gags gonna have to be cut out. You know, we got our own platforms to be able to raise our own following and everything. So I think it's just going to make it just even more phenomenal for us if we use it right. So yeah, I think the time is perfect.
CJ, what you think, brother?
I got a little difference of opinion, bro. I think that shit was messy. I think he had some great points, and like she said, a lot of people backed up what he said. But I think he's got something coming out soon, and not only that, Diddy just got exposed. TD Jakes is getting exposed. So, like my brother said at the bottom, he kind of hit it at the right time. It's like it's gonna be a tsunami of chaos. So, but he just came off messy to me with some of the stuff he had to say, man. Talking about Marjorie, talking about the light skin, the whole light skin issue with the ugly face. Yeah, he's a comedian, but in that moment, he was propping himself up to be somebody that was giving you information. So I wasn't looking to laugh. I was looking to learn something. If you know what I'm saying? That's what he was saying. You feel what I'm saying? So for me, it was a little messy, even though I think it was necessary. The nigga messy.
Can I add on?
Of course.
I think he introduced a whole new genre of sit-down comedy rather than stand-up comedy. He ushered in sit-down comedy, and it breathed life into these podcasts. And he really gave a performance. That was a scripted. I don't know if he wrote everything out, but you know, my mind would tell me that some of those questions that Shannon Sharp was asking him may have been, you know, he may have known what those questions were going to be. And that was a 3-hour quote unquote sit down stand up routine because his targets were the kings of comedy and homie Ricky Smiley. That was the whole premise of his foundational why he was there. It justified him being there. It justified him having the conversation. It justified him defending himself. And, you know, the type of humor that Katt Williams is known for is that type of slick, sly, you know, I'm hitting your ass below the belt. You know what I mean? I'm not playing fair, but I'll do it while smiling. So, yeah, it was messy, but it was Katt, though. That's what he do.
And
yeah, I think the messy part was necessary because that's how people pay attention. I think it was well thought out.
See, when people say shit like that, man, like this is why I don't rock with somebody like Charleston White, because they'll tell you that I'm being a character. No, nigga, you are a character. Like that's really what it is. Like they dress it up as I'm trying to make you learn, but in reality, the nigga wanted fame. I'm not talking about Katt. I'm just saying Charleston White is like a way lesser version of Katt Williams, in my opinion. They dress.
Well, to your point, he says that. He strategically does that. He said that before he was doing it in the proper politically correct way, no one paid attention to him. And then he actually put on this character that he is portraying, as he says, and that's no different from roles and characters that we watch in movies. So I don't take it personally or take offense to it, but I actually see it as a wise, especially being in the industry. We had such things as publicity stunts. We had such things as things that triggered emotions, that triggered excitement, that caused types of things that have been done throughout the history of entertainment. So why are we upset about it now? Because we're recognizing it?
Well, I'm not necessarily upset about it, but you know, I sat down with him face to face, man to man.
No, not you personally. Not you.
No, I'm just kind of elaborating on why I said what I said, though. I had a conversation with him man to man, and I thought that conversation went well. He claimed that he respected me as a man. He said I was the new leader of my generation. Blah 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 blah. As soon as he saw something in the comment section he didn't like, he went and made a live video disrespecting me at every turn. Now, I'm not taking that personally. I'm just talking about if your message is for Black unity, and you said that when you were actually talking in front of Congress, people didn't pay you attention. Well, that's not a celebrity position. Do you want the fame or do you want change? That's my whole thing.
Well, let me jump in real quick. I think I see what you're saying, CJ, but we got to be honest. Our people don't listen to messages that come outside of celebrity. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny that you said that because I have that question. It seems like we only listen to celebrity. Like I seen Joe Biden get on a radio station, a black radio station, told the whole country, if you're not black, if you don't vote, you're not black. And there was no pushback to that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things been said that's considered, conspiracy theorists and all that stuff, and people would dismiss that. But if Jay-Z said, if Beyonce said, if Kendrick said, it becomes information now. So we have told people that we only listen to celebrity. We have, as a people, have told people that we only listen to salacious statements. It's like I make this example a lot, and I'm not trying to knock anybody from the hood. I'm from the hood, but where I'm from, it's like the youth. We would. Instead of if somebody come from the inner city, they might be a doctor, they might be a lawyer, they might, get their degree or whatever. The children necessarily don't want to hear what they got to say. But somebody can come from jail who just went to jail for murder, and they'll come talk to a room full of children and it's filled up. So we, in our society, it seems like we have taught people that in order to tell people to do right, you got to get your hands dirty to tell them not to get their hands dirty. Does anybody understand where I'm coming from? Does any pushback that? Does it sound familiar? Am I talking crazy or what?
It's called experience. I would rather hear from a world-class mountain climber about how to climb mountains before I hear about somebody that never climbed a mountain telling me about mountain climbing.
Mm-hmm.
So people who've gotten their hands dirty, they're more apt to listen to them because they're like, yo, this nigga knows what he's talking about. People could pick up on things. They know when somebody is forcing it, and they know when somebody is organically just sharing their experiences and whatnot. And those people tend to be a little more captivating to the audience. We live in the attention economy. So people are approaching the internet differently. I'm actually offended by people that come on social networks and try to be their real self. Like, where's your character?
Right.
Wasting time and you taking up room because the internet is for characters. It's not for your real life. It's not. I don't care about your real life, and I really don't want to know you. I want to get into the character because this is a stage that we on, and this is broadcast television right here. This is not the barbershop. This is not, what your real name is and stuff like that. That's not what the internet is for. That's not what social networks are for. I don't know about social media, but the people who are big on social networks, they're all characters.
That's a very interesting perspective.
Yeah.
I actually agree with that. And I think Charleston White does very well because he get into character. Matter of fact, listen to your favorite rapper. If they not in character, you probably wouldn't listen to them. You probably wouldn't listen to
that's the problem.
or 50 Cent or, and not to take it into hip hop, but you have to have a certain type of swag to captivate an audience or to even be believable. And I think what Katt Williams did, that sit down stand up, I think that was a form of art because I personally watched it to laugh. I personally watched it because I know Katt Williams is hilarious. And as me watching it to laugh, I found out that he adopted 7 kids and he gave this away and he gave that. I'm like, damn, I didn't know this person. I didn't know Katt Williams was this intelligent, and he's talking, and you get what I'm saying. But it was his character that drew me to that interview. Not I knew Katt Williams was a stand-up guy his whole life, and I knew his mother and his father and it was this man is funny. I want to see what he's talking about. Oh snap! Wow, he's actually a dope person. So I think it's once you know how to manipulate the internet and Charleston White, he say stuff of views, but I still think that's an intelligent brother. And I might not agree with everything he's saying or everything how he's moving. I might not even move how he moves, but I know that it's for a purpose.
And I like Charleston too. And then one thing Red said, I agree with you, Red. There is a value to somebody who went through a burden that you went through. There is a value in that. But do you think that sometimes we downplay people who come from these environments and was able to, because we know people who, there's a difference between a person who just run away from conflict and someone who knows how to avoid conflict. Do you think that sometimes we put too much emphasis on the survivor of the street or the dude who actually killed a body or the dude who actually went to jail, as opposed to somebody who come from that environment but who's able to navigate that without having to compromise themselves?
You know what's interesting about what was said just now, and why I said it was a very good perspective, because the perspective that you mentioned in reference to everybody's a character, there's a lot of truth to it. The perspective that the brother mentioned, isn't that the problem? There's a lot of truth to that. The thing is that we're speaking two separate truths on one's, for example, Katt's not trying to save the world, he's trying to expose certain things about the world. Whereas politicians and people who are in the community, activists, they're trying to save the world. So they have two different perspectives. But if we look at all of the entities involved, the politicians are characters, the reverends are characters, the street dealers are, the drug dealers are characters, some of the teachers are playing characters. So the characteristics and the characters that are in life, we often ignore, but we also embrace their personalities and characteristics. So are we confused? Often I think we are.
Mm-hmm. I think what happened with I think what's happening with Charleston, and because remember he got humanized on Cam Newton's podcast, and Katt Williams, the character, got humanized on Uncle Shay Shay's podcast. I was gonna skip past the interview because I was like, I'm not interested in the character right now. I got better things to do. And then they put a clip on Instagram, and he was giving up the real about Katt Williams. I think he said some shit about when he was reading a lot of books. So then I'm like, okay, so I get to know the real person. The same thing happened with Charleston White. He hooked me in because the way that they're asking these questions in these interviews, they're humanizing characters, but you can't do it the other way around. People are trying to humanize themselves and then introduce the character. You don't do it like that on the internet. You understand? We want to meet the character first. We want to fall in love with the character. We want to fall in love with the different roles that you play. And then we want to know what the hell is behind the madness. What's the story behind the character? That's when you human. That's why you write books and become bestsellers. That's why documentaries blow up. That's why docuseries like the Wu-Tang story blows up and whatnot. You wouldn't want to hear about this group of 9 dudes from New York that's rapping unless they already introduced you to these characters. How did these characters come about? That's what the series was showing you: the birth of Ghostface, the birth of Old Dirty, the birth of quote unquote Method Man and whatnot. So the entertainment industry in the real world are one and the same. And I dare you to try to separate the two. It just don't work like that anymore. Pop culture is normalized. Hip hop is pop culture. Pop culture is the things that you talk about at the proverbial water cooler and at your table and whatnot. So white people, Spanish people, Asian people, Indian, everybody who is tapped into the frequency, all of them are part of the culture. You know what I'm talking about? And it's not, you can't separate especially on social media now. We the new entertainers. It's no separation of the two. We live in the attention economy. We live in a creator economy. We live in this new digital economy. We're literally in a matrix right now through your phones doing all of this stuff that we're doing. People got these colorful monikers. You know, they giving up, you know, the day they got certain teachers in our community. They'll be like, I'm from this planet. I'm from this dimension. You know what I mean? And they, whoever they say that they are.
What's interesting about what you're saying, and it lends to the point that I was trying to make, is that it was always separate. We just connected it. And that's part of the problem. You have a lot of these entertainers. For example, I use the Terminator, for example. I use Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. They are characters, but when they leave their character, they aren't walking around saying they're the Terminator. They aren't walking around saying they're Rambo. They're walking around saying who they again, another character to your point, Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger. But the point is, they do create that separation, and that's probably why often we argue about the advancement of where we're not and where some of them are, is because we want to embrace as if it's a reality. Those drug dealers that we're talking about, that you said about the experience, they're not talking about glorifying what they did. They're talking about the shame and the guilt of what they should have done. So it's a big difference, but when you don't separate it, and that's part of to the brother's point earlier, the issue, if you ask me.
Can I chime in? Just
Definitely.
Yes.
okay. So 2 things from what I listened to. I wanted to ask a rhetorical question. Is it considered messy when you're telling the truth of things that people like to keep secrets? That's the one thing, because I know CJ said he thought it was messy.
No.
But sometimes the truth can sound messy because people don't want you to know the truth. But was it messy when they made him look like something he wasn't, the same way they did Prodigy, the same way they do a lot of entertainers who say, you know what, I don't really want to be in the industry. It's like, you have to shut up. We don't like snitches, or you can't snitch, and this and that and the other. But the industry is full of men who did a lot of snitching, even on the streets, but they'll cover it up. So I just wanted to ask that, is it considered messy because people are telling the truth about things that people want to keep in the dark and sell you what y'all are saying a character? Because I don't think it's a character. I think it's just different versions of themselves. I think if you operate in integrity, I can be funny here, I can be entertaining here, I can be all these different things on topic. I don't think that anybody in the industry would do anything that's homosexual based if they weren't okay with it for X amount of reason in the first place. I think there's numerous of people who didn't do certain things because that just wasn't who they were. Or like I was telling Ella earlier, Ghost played, or Amari Hardwick played a homosexual character even in For Color Girls, but you never seen in action. So even if they can pick and choose how they play these characters, they can pick and choose how they play these characters, if you get what I'm saying. If I'm saying something like, oh, you know, would you put on a dress for $10 million? Depending on your circumstances, you may say yes, or you might be like, those jokes go around, would you suck D for X amount of money? And men be like, hey, I suck 10.
What?
He told you 1. So now you kind of telling on yourself, but then you have the men that say it's no amount of money to get me to do nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think to be okay or first comfortable with it, I think that's a part of who you are, just like Lil Nas X, who's trying to say that the industry is making him do this. Now that you're on your own, you're still depicting these images. So I don't think that a person just goes from being one way and then they completely flamboyant, or they just all in a lifestyle. I think some things expose you, or a different part of you. The same thing with Charleston White. I don't know why he became popular by saying egregious things against Black women, cocaine, graping, and you know what I'm saying, things against little. I don't know why our culture makes things or choose to ignore things like that, or even give them a couch to talk on. But I think that that's more so says something about us in our community, as far as, you know, what goes on in this house stays in this house. So if you speak about it and you make Big Mama or Big Papa or whatever, whoever feels a certain way, I think that has something to do with people say, you're shamed for telling our secrets, because a lot of people like to keep things in the closet. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Can I add something real quick to answer that? How many of y'all saw, there was a podcast that went viral in 2023 where there was a CIA operative, and he was talking about the how the CIA basically utilizes surveillance to build dossiers, and he talked about public, private, and secret. How many of y'all saw that?
Did he have a Twitter and he had like a fake face? He was like Mr. something. They keep deleting his accounts.
Nah. This dude looked like he may be like Spanish descent and whatnot. And he used to work in the CIA. And he talked about CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. And one of the main things that they do when they surveil people to build their dossier is they have they don't look, they look at 3 parts of a human. They look at 3 parts of their target. They look at your public face, the face that you show the world, right? The person that you show the world, the character, that you show the world, the mask that you wear in the world, right? I don't think I have to get on no soapbox to describe that everybody's wearing a mask in public.
Right.
Kendrick said in 55, in 95, he did the song. But there's another part of us that people don't know about, and that's our private face, right? And our private face is what the Federal Bureau of Investigation investigates, right? This is part of the private face that Jeffrey Epstein was utilizing when he was blackmailing all of these politicians and these people that have what? Weird sexual proclivities. That's your private face. What is your kinks? What do you do in the dark? What is your sexual proclivity? What are you into? Because the CIA, the FBI, the mob, the Italian mafia, the Jewish mafia, and a few other people realized a long time ago that you could judge how a person's mentality, their psychology is built up based off of their what? Their proclivities, what they do in private. And then your secret self is the part of yourself that you never know, you don't let anybody know. If somebody discovers some of your secrets, you could take it as far as to taking their life because you die with your secrets. You feel me? So hip hop right now is so provocative because Sexy Red, she's leading with her private face. She's not leading with her public face, is her private self. So the face that she goes into the world with is my booty hole is brown. That's private. No, you laughing. I'm telling you how people are winning in this troll economy and this quote unquote attention economy, and then what they call they know how to go sticky, they know how to be viral, they know how to make shock and awe. So they're leading with their private life. So Charleston White comes and he tells you that he caught a body when he was a teenager. He's giving you all of the details. He's giving you his secrets. He's letting you know before anybody could blackmail him, before anybody could hang anything over his head. These are my flaws. These are my secret. This is my private life. He's talking, Sexy Red, she leaks her sex tape. What does that bring? More followers, right? More followers. Two couples, Cardi and Offset, they're getting into all of these things about what? Their private life. So people will do anything to be voyeurs. We live in this age of voyeurism, henceforth why OnlyFans is what it is. Because what are people doing? They're dropping large amounts of money to do what? To watch people in their private life. You understand? They want to see what people are when the mask is off. There's the dark web right now. You could go on the dark web and see what people are doing in their secret life. Not their private life, their secret life. Because they're on the dark web doing some real crazy shit that people kill each other over. So we just live in a very hyper, quote unquote, stimulated world right now. And we got to understand that while we're on social media and while we're doing social networking, the people that designed this, these big tech people, these are neurological experts. They study brain activity. They study the behaviors of people. That's how they market to us. That's how they sell things to us. That's how they become trillion-dollar companies, right? Because they're figuring out the behaviors of human beings, and they know your privacy. They know your private life. They know your secrets, and they know what you out here in the public putting on and whatnot. These are big tech companies. They know everything about you because big data is running the world right now.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I say it because these simplistic entertainers who are going ahead and utilizing, to your point, exposing their privacy so that they can't be exploited or blackmailed. So are they geniuses? Are they techs? Where do they land? Or are they just tricked into good fortune? To be honest with you, I'm asking that rhetorically because I believe that they have figured out a lot of what you're saying and have utilized it to their advantage. And that's why I can't knock a person who is strategically doing something that many of us might not agree with, but they are doing it for the purposes of growing in whatever it is that they want to, or achieving whatever it is that they want to achieve. Right. So who are we to dismiss that? Because we, and Illa, you kind of touched on it a little, and I think you're going to touch on it later. Who are we to sit there and judge it, so to speak, when educators or let's say scholars do it in the way that you just described it, where creatives do it in another way, whereas muscle do it in another way, but they all doing the same thing to achieve what it is that they're trying to achieve.
That's what's up. I want to just take a second. We have a guest that appreciate you for pulling up, my man Angry Man. So Angry Man, if people are not familiar, I would like you to introduce yourself to the panel and let people know what you're about. And I'm definitely know you're going to add to this conversation. Appreciate you for pulling up, brother.
What's good with everybody? For those that don't know me, I'm the Angry Man. Came over here to kick it with my man Philosophical. Yo, Beano Nation in the chat. Make sure y'all subscribe too, man.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.
Hey, what's Beano Nation? Because I see it in the chat, but I don't know what it is. Forgive my.
Tell us about Beano Nation, man.
Yeah. It means black in name only, because nowadays the culture has degenerated to a degree where I feel like me and the people that watch me got to represent for what the culture used to be and not what it's turning into, with the sexy reds and all of the foolishness that's going on. You feel me?
I got a question.
What up?
Off of what you saying, you said y'all represent what the culture used to be and not what it is turning into. I got a theory that I like to follow, which is chaos, right? And chaos means change is always supreme. Change is the only thing that is supreme. And even though sometimes we might move into an era where we might not like it, it might be new to us, it might not be like what we used to. Do we still try to hold on to what we have been holding on, or do we try to adapt and change and evolve with the times, even though it might not be what we used to? And I asked you that question because somebody asked me that question, and I really had to think about it, because I think about tradition, I think about elders, I think about morals, respect, and then I also think about, well, this day and age, you can't, morals and respect and integrity would take you far back in the days, but right now, like the conversation is saying, you might have to show your private life first or your secret first just to get to where you need to get to, and then you get what I'm saying. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, every once in a while, you might have to burn a forest down so to grow back lush, but that don't mean you get rid of the seeds.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're always gonna have build and destroy, for all my 5% people out there. But when you're in a destructive state, which is what we're in right now, once it's time to rebuild, you got to pull from the wisdom of the elders in order to rebuild. Because the people that's in destructive mode right now, especially if they came into the generation with the destructive mind state, they're not going to be the ones to rebuild. So you're gonna have to pull from the elders. You're gonna have to pull from what worked. Not saying that everything back in the day was perfect, but when you go into that chaotic state, when it's time to destroy something, you still got to you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You feel me?
Right.
So let's get into these questions. I want to start off with this first question because Katt spoke about gatekeepers. And he spoke about certain people that keep people out the industry or can rise them up. So I want to throw this question at y'all. When you think of the word gatekeeper, what comes to mind? Lucky.
Someone in between you and something that gives you success or anything that you want. It could be like a crossroads. That's what I think of a gatekeeper, a crossroads.
CJ.
Somebody that's trying to keep the majority of people away from what they deem valuable.
Thanks. Some guys on you.
When I hear the word gatekeeper, I have a dualistic mind, and depending on the topic, depending on how the conversation is going, I could see gatekeeper being a sacred thing. Like some of our elders were gatekeepers for a good reason, to keep certain bad people out from trying to take knowledge and manipulate it and turn it bad. And then you have gatekeepers like in Hollywood, who's, or in the music industry, or even in sports, or whatever field you want to be in. And they gatekeeping for their own selfish benefit, so you can't surpass them. So it's a two-sided coin with me.
Keys on you.
I think that gatekeeper, just based on the flyer and the topic that we're talking about tonight, is someone who is secretively jealous, and basically is trying to, block or stop, a person's goals by any way necessary.
That's a fact. That's a fact. AM was good.
A gatekeeper is an agent. It's a person who gets an opportunity, but they're only given that opportunity because they're being told to operate a certain way. So what they do is they walk through the door of opportunity and they close it behind them, and they only let other people in that's going to get with the same program that they on. So in my opinion, the gatekeepers basically run with a narrative, and anybody that's a truth teller, they keep them out. Anybody that can't be controlled, they keep them out. So it's like, nah, you're not going to come in here unless you're going to get with the program and do what we do.
Yep.
That's a fact.
Sean. That's a great definition.
When I think of gatekeeper, I think of why is there a gate? And I think who built that gate?
I like that. I like that. Red.
Can I say names?
Man, you can say whatever you want, because we going there.
Yeah, I think of Russell Simmons. Definitely what they came and did during the golden era of hip hop, when Black men and women were calling themselves gods and goddesses and were vibrating on a higher frequency. And the pillar that they removed from hip hop, which is 5 pillars, and they removed consciousness. And they began to clown and ridicule melanated men in Hollywood by way of like Sharif in the Menace to Society movie. And they began to make intelligent Black men look like they were weak and compromised. So gatekeepers mean compromise. Gatekeeper means Boule. Gatekeeper is Al Sharpton. Gatekeeper is Quincy. Gatekeeper is Puffy. Gatekeeper is Andre Harrell. Gatekeeper is everybody that was compromised manhood-wise by some of these deviant European men who wielded their position and power and sold them one of the fakest things in the world, which is fame.
Talk to him, man.
Fame is worse than opium, and our people collectively, especially in the attention economy and the troll economy, we are debilitating and suffering the most from fame. We the ones that are bearing the biggest brunt. We fame demons.
Red, I'm glad you said that. You I'm sorry, Lucky. He said a word that I want him to elaborate on a little bit, because I'm gonna show some imagery. But you mentioned the word boule. I know some of us may be familiar with that, but for those who never heard the term or had it elaborated, Red, I would love for you to elaborate on what that word means, and just give us a little bit about the boule, please.
The guardians of the gate, you know what I mean? They are the proverbial buffers. They're the watchdogs. They're the glorified help. They the house nigga. That's homie from Candyland with the gloves on. Steven, right? From the Django. The boule is a fraternal order. All of this thing, it's a fraternal order. The organizations that yield the most power and have the most influence and basically have done the most, they have taken oaths. So we're going up against oath takers. The majority of the people that we're dealing against, we dealing with the fraternal order of police. Those are oath takers. We dealing with the lawyers. Those are oath takers. We dealing with the quote unquote people who take the the medical oath. Those are oath takers. We dealing with fraternal orders. Those are oath takers. And this particular fraternal order, or the collective of them, or the consortium of them, they've taken an oath to protect the quote unquote biggest lie. And one of the biggest lies that have been told is about who we are versus who we aren't. The fact that Hiram Abiff is buried in a shallow grave, meaning that the gods have come to the planet. We come here to sleep, you know what I mean? And they help to keep us asleep, and they help to keep us buried in a shallow grave, a grave that you could easily pull a man out of with that lion's grip. You know what I mean? That shallow grave is the fact that we don't have that red pill. A lot of people have not been given that light to wake them up, that lion's grip to pull you out that shallow grave. That shallow grave is just your ignorance. The fact that you thought you was a slave, the fact that you thought that you contributed nothing, the fact that you thought that you were literally like a useless eater. That's the shallow grave. It's called a sunken place in Hollywood, but that's the shallow grave. And that's who the Boule are. Preachers, lawyers, congressmen. What's his name? Charlie Rangel, one of the biggest ever. You know what I mean? The way that he did Harlem, one of the biggest Boule on the planet. You know, the Hollywood people. You see Clarence Avant, right? The Black Godfather. His name will come up in this year. His name will come up a lot more prominently in this year, because the unraveling that you're seeing taking place, certain names could only get mentioned as the dominoes fall further. His name, his domino was too big to even be mentioned at this point. The same way that P. Diddy's domino hit, it didn't fall when they was dealing with R. Kelly. You know what I mean? So it's one domino at a time. But yeah, we dealing with some people who, and there's even a more mystical aspect where you talk about the archons, and the archons are said to be the black nobility, which would be that black hidden hand. That there's rumors that behind all of this stuff, behind that curtain, the Wizard of Oz, the Oz is some black people. Okay, them royal bloodlines
I always
out of
felt
Europe.
like that. I felt like before we got to the main protagonist that's against us, I feel like we got to deal with some black devils. You know what I mean? AM, how you feel about that? AM, how you feel about that, bro?
Say the question again. My bad.
I said before. I feel like before we get to the main protagonist, I feel like it's a lot of black people amongst us that's buffering us from progression. How you feel about that? What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, when you look at certain individuals, with a lot of the stuff that's coming out right now, it's really sad and it's unfortunate, because they're, you know, if you grew up in the 90s like I did, in the 80s and the 90s, some of these people are people that we liked, that we looked up to, that we really thought was gonna, you know, help us in some way, shape, or form. And now the way it's coming out, it's like these folks is really on some bullshit. So yeah, there's plenty of black people that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like you look at what Puffy got going on. You look at, now that more of the stuff is coming out, you're starting to realize, like, as much as I hate to say this, because I don't like saying certain shit on platforms, but you got to start asking yourself, why are some people still alive and some people dead? You feel what I'm saying? So I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, but yeah, there's a lot of black folks they on some bullshit, and it's time for people to recognize that they own this bullshit and they need to be fucking punished for it. Like the fact that black people put their trust in them to help them out of a situation, and come to find out you just was used, like the young boy that played he played on that show Empire.
Yeah, the young dude.
Yeah, the young boy Bashir. The way, like, from what I heard about how they did him, like, bruh, yeah, that type of shit gotta come to a stop, man. Like, for real.
So let me ask y'all a question, because since we're talking about this Boule, and I don't know if you guys know, but there's definitely a lot of fraternal ties. This is a fraternal world. You got the Fraternal Order of Police. You got all these different groups that you have to basically audition for, go through the burning sands to get opportunities in the NFL or get opportunities in the NBA. And as far as the HBCU aspect, you know, these black colleges, black fraternities, I want to ask you guys, are these three-letter black organizations, are they progressive, or are they breeding grounds for further exploitation? The floor is y'all.
Both. And that's the tricky part about it. You have some that are progressive, and you have many that are deceptive. And defining that fine line between which one is it, they always give that analogy of there's a snake, so there are a bunch of lions. Do you try and separate them? You don't, but they both exist. There are tame lions and there are vicious lions. There are snakes that bite and poisonous, and there are snakes that exist that aren't poisonous. So they both do exist, but it's up to us on whether we take the time to separate or try to specify them.
Just in philosophical, even broaching this subject, it got me researching. And one of the things that I found out was that from Black Wall Street to pretty much anything that Black people as an image did that was prominent is connected to the Boule and is connected to the three-letter society. And a lot of people, just like Black Lives Matter, what these organizations are doing is they're hiding behind the moniker of Black excellence, which makes it hard to decipher if you should support it. Yeah. That's all I have to.
A lot of our people, we don't think on the thrival mode level. We deal with a lot of fear or lack, which is one of the worst energies you can harvest. And when it comes to just the gatekeeping, or whatever, if you join a gang, or it's all gonna be from what you fear you don't have, unless you train your mind to not operate in that way. And with the gatekeeping, a lot of our entertainers, if you listen, like I remember I was reading something with Gunna, and he was saying something about, he went through seeing people get killed and seeing detrimental things growing up, and he went to the pad and started writing, right? And so I'm like, damn, that has nothing to do with healing what you saw. That has nothing to do with fixing the traumatic experiences of how that younger you is gonna now move, whether you're gonna move like a scared boy who wants to join in on the crowd, or you're searching for quicker ways to get there because you don't want to avoid what you saw when you was little. But going to the pad, a lot of times people are working on their talents as opposed to fixing the issue. And we're seeing these things from our parents to our grandparents. And so when it comes to the gatekeeping, a lot of that's coming from, it's like, damn, I'm tired. Like, we've been passed down generations of exhaustion. And a lot of us are going through those gates or gatekeeping from others because you fear of lack. You feel you don't deserve, you feel you're not worthy. And so a lot of these situations of the gatekeepers is like, okay, we all have intuition. Everybody knows when you should and shouldn't do something. When you're supposed to say no. Why are you ignoring that? So I just wanted to add that part to it. When it came to the groups and any of those decisions that we're making, you're gonna make it from a mode of lack, because we don't think thrival mode. So unless you train yourself to.
Well, the problem is in part of what you're saying. If you take a group of people, and I've been said this a while ago, like before hip hop music, if you go back and you look at the 80s, I don't know how old all of y'all are here, but if you're Gen Xers, if you remember in the 80s, there was very little opportunity for Black people. There was very little opportunity for Black people. So then when you have hip hop come along, now all of a sudden you have an art form that has a low barrier to entry. So now you got people from the hood that have a talent that can actually make some money. And the problem is when you take a group of people that's lacking, a group of people that's in survival mode, that's struggling, it's just like a person starving, and you hand them some food, but you say, hey, but before I give you this food, you got to do X, Y, Z.
Absolutely.
And now you have a dilemma.
Absolutely.
Do you choose to starve to death, or do you choose to take the food and just deal with, rationalize in your mind, well, I did it for the paper, that's
Absolutely.
where, because like, look, let's be real about it. I don't like what a lot of these dudes have done, but it's just like that speech that's at the beginning of the Dead Prez album, where they talk about how the wolf, you know what I'm saying? we get upset with the wolf, but we got to understand the wolf was just trying to survive.
Right.
So we got to take that into account too, because there's a lot of brothers in the entertainment industry that they really just wanted to survive. They wanted to take care of their families, and they compromised themselves.
Right.
And they're gonna pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just the way it is. That's universal law. They're gonna pay for it. But you know, we got to think about that too. You know, when it comes to that.
Yeah. Oh,
Happy
sorry.
man.
I had wanted to add on to that as well, and that's why a lot of the artists that I help remain healthy and start their health journey when they come into the world of hip hop is to heal why you want to be who you want to be, because like we said with the character, right? That character is developing not when you're older. That character is developing when you're 7, and then you go through something and you alternate that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if what people are doing are they're going through traumatic experiences and blaming it on becoming better in a completely separate area. If I see my mom and my dad fighting, that does not mean go get better in rap. That does not mean go get better in people are cheating energy. You have to deal with that situation. Yes, you can become a better writer, but they need to be separate. Just like you would think like, okay, we can't use emotion and logic with certain situations, the same thing. You have to know, look, I'm making this decision to go through this door or to cheat because the 8-year-old me or the 10-year-old me went through these certain situations. And so we don't have that training. And so it's just like, I agree with that when it comes to us being in survival mode, but we are here to survive. Like that's what our heart is for. That's what our organs are for. We already understand we're supposed to go through traumatic experiences, get through them, teach the next generation. We already equipped to go through detrimental things and become better. So why are we not doing that at a younger age besides just getting better in our talents? And that's where that character part comes from, because it's like, oh, you being two people. You know, deep down inside, you're going through a horse load of shit and it's not getting handled. But what you're doing is becoming better in another area. Look, I can play ball better. Look, I can act. Look, I can entertain, because you're trying to ignore the fact that what you really, really need to be putting that energy to, which is getting through the traumatic experiences so that, you know, you can grow and teach other people.
Well, there's one part I disagree with that you said. Like, we're not really here to survive. We're supposed to be here to thrive.
Absolutely.
Like, we're not supposed to survive. And the problem with hip hop, and I just came to this realization this year when Jeezy came out with his album, and I'm listening to it and I'm like, you know, people telling me it's fire, and I'm like, it's trash. And the reason why is because the one thing we haven't realized about hip hop specifically is you outgrow it. You outgrow it. Like, the reason why is because hip hop, even with all of the elements that's positive, in the beginning, hip hop is still tied to street culture. It's still tied to drug dealing. You feel what I'm saying? And the only reason why I say that is because a lot of the early hip hop artists, they were mimicking the drug dealers as far as the way they dress, as far as the lifestyle, and all of those different things. And street life and drug dealing, that's something that you grow out of. So what's happening with hip hop, in my opinion, is it hasn't evolved. It hasn't changed to be more mature. This is the reason why 50 said in his book, even though he still has a desire to write music, he knows he can't spit it because they don't want to hear that from him because he's in a different place. He has to give that to a younger rapper because they want to hear the dysfunction. They want to hear the dysfunction in our music. And that's the problem with it. The artists that seem to blow up and thrive and all of that, they're the ones that rap about the struggle, that rap about dysfunction. This is why the Talib Kweli's, Mos Def's, the Backpackers, the raucous rappers, that's why they never got no shine like that. And that's the reason why, like back in the day, when you saw NWA come in with gangster rap, all of the other conscious rap just got pushed to the side and got categorized as underground hip hop, when that's really what we should have been listening to. You feel me?
Can I ask you a great point?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Prince. Go ahead, Prince. Get in there.
I was gonna say the Talib Kweli's, the Commons, the Mos Defs, you know, the Lauryn Hills, the India Aries, the neo soul music. You know, that at a point that music was on all major airways, and it was helping people. People were singing good tunes. I remember going to high school listening to Erykah Badu, and you get what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
I feel like once they realize, wow, these people are actually loving each other. Let's actually take this all the way away from them, because same thing with love making music in the 80s and the 70s. You get what I'm saying? Families were staying together. It was love. No, I feel like whatever genre of music we tap into, and we give it our all and our heart and our love and our respect, they're going to try to dilute that. Even R&B right now, R&B is not the same R&B that it was in the 80s. And R&B is not tied to street culture, I don't think, in my opinion.
R&B.
I think R&B is tied to rhythm and blues. It's tied to love and, you know, singing your blues. But they even found the way to tamper with that and turn that into just about sex and polluting it.
Brother, R&B don't exist.
You know what's
Wait, can I
Right,
just
it don't.
say
It don't exist no more.
It don't.
Anchorman's point? I wanted to ask, because he said, if we're talking about like gatekeeping and things like that, do you guys think that the artists are choosing not to say that? Because if the media controls what trends, what you listen to,
Right.
what's in your algorithm, if they control that, then it's pretty much they're giving you material that they want to push. Because if they say, let's say you make a good album, if we understand what sounds good and what's trending, there's a particular sound, there's a particular cadence and how they rap and things like that that's selling. So if they control the numbers, they control who gets an award for it. It's kind of like they're selling a perception to tell you that this person trended. Like, for example, no shot, but Drake is arguing right now. They're arguing whether or not he's just as important as Michael Jackson based on streams and all these things. But if you're talking about Drake, who's responsible for pushing Drake? You know what I'm saying? Getting him those awards, saying you're up here. It seems like if you are a certain artist and we could say positive rap or things like that don't get played, is it because we don't want to listen to it, or we're talking about the people that are quote unquote gatekeepers aren't going to push it? Because then you do have independent artists like a Nipsey Hussle that could talk about a lot of different things, or different artists that we also listen to a lot of underground. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, is it that we don't want to listen to it, or they're not pushing that?
Well, the problem the problem is the commercialization of hip hop.
Right.
Like when you first look at it at the beginning, hip hop culture is meant to be anti-establishment. It's meant to push back against the narrative of what American culture has been towards Black people. The problem is, at some point, niggas sold their soul. And so it's not just that because we're just now getting into the space where we're talking about streams and all of that different stuff. There was a time where we did have a little more control over what was being put out. And the reason why you know that is because of how hard the establishment was pushing back against it.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So at one point, when the artists really cared more about hip hop than awards, accolades, and all of those different things, they had a freaking 50th anniversary of hip hop. KRS-One refused to go to it. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah. So you still have hip hop artists that still have that spirit in them. The problem is there's too many of them that have compromised themselves, and they're just willing to do whatever for a paycheck, willing to do whatever for clout.
Right.
Can
I just propose a question to the older gentlemen on the panel that come from that era? So when I look at the music that's my generation millennial, right? It seems as if debauchery is being pushed out to be our image, right? I got little cousins that don't even know who Michael Jackson is, right? But they can tell you every NBA YoungBoy lyric, right? Where to a point where every song that they put out, even if it's a not so debaucherous song, it's still going to be murder in the topic. It's still going to be sex in the hook. It's still going to be something that is represented that is not the most positive. And I'm not even against street rappers because it's an element that I even come from. But it do seems as if that they're trying to make this our new normal. Like they're trying to say that this is what you are. We're also buying into it. But what's the difference between that and Ice Cube and NWA?
Okay, can I
Go
ask a
ahead.
couple of other things? First off, we keep on saying there, and we're not really embracing ours. You know, you said that hip hop didn't mature. A lot of things that we admire that are successful didn't quote unquote mature. They redefined. You know, the businesses that we're in now that are successful, those multi-billion-dollar industries, are based on the same capitalist thought and mindset of the streets that helped them to get there. They just redefined it. They didn't mature out of it. It still goes on. All of the backstabbing for capitalism, it still goes on. The difference is we have a war within us, capitalism versus activism. And hip hop has been some of the warriors in this war. And we haven't defined it because we went from survival and we never realized when it became greed.
Mm-hmm.
And so we continuously talk about them, but we aren't defining greed versus survival. We aren't defining
gluttony
activism versus capitalism. So until we start defining these things amongst ourselves, we'll be clueless in moving forward. We'll be clueless in getting resolutions. We'll be clueless. And to answer your question, the difference between your generation and NWA, there is no difference. I had that same argument when we was talking about Sexy Red with some people online on social media one day. They were saying how bad Sexy Red is. I said, she's no different than NWA. They want to kill me. Oh, what do you mean? No, NWA. They were doing. I'm like, yo, they were taught how to get capital by exploiting street life or what have you. They weren't gangsters for the most part.
Absolutely.
And so she is just a reflection of what we allowed.
I got a slight pushback on that a little bit, Sean. Just a little bit.
You can push back. I've had it pushed all day.
Was a scholar.
But the point is, we can push back the technicalities. I agree. There's a lot of technicalities we could push back on. But the point that I'm making is if we stop being so specific when we're talking generally and stop being so general when we're talking specific, it won't be so much push. Because technically, if we're talking generally, they did the same thing.
Okay.
Now, for what reasons? I can't sit there. Let me explain first.
Red is not bringing awareness to culture.
That's my thing.
And wait. Initially, NWA wasn't bringing awareness. So let's stop and act like we know. Let's
wait a minute. Hold on. Can I share something? Can I share something?
Jump in.
NWA started out as a quote unquote anti-establishment West Coast version of PE, right? The two songs were called Express Yourself and Fuck the Police. I believe you me, brother.
NWA came before that, brother.
What happened?
They had an album out before that.
I understand, but what I'm talking about is when NWA started to blow up, when NWA
Mainstream.
started to get controversial, when NWA got the letter from the FBI, when NWA got interviewed by Yo MTV Raps and they were walking through the train tracks and whatnot. That was when they were talking about Express Yourself, Fuck the Police,
Right.
Straight Outta Compton. This is when Ice Cube was with them. They had a revolutionary amongst them who had a slightly street reality type of pen. When he took his pen with him and he left, that's when they turned into this black exploitation version of NWA, where they were talking about killing women, throwing them in the trunk, raping women. That's when they became more so like a parody. when we were listening to NWA, we knew that we were listening to parody rap. It was the same thing as if you saw CB4 with MC Gusto. We did not take everything that they were saying seriously. We were not buying into everything that was going on when they were talking jokingly about raping women and throwing them in the trunk and whatnot. The difference between the younger generation, let me finish this thought. The difference between the younger generation, the drill rappers, and the generation from an NWA, the drill rappers are really bodying shit, right? Once again, public, private, secret. They giving you their secrets. They like, I'm smoking on the ops. What does that mean? That means you really bodied something. You have a whole generation of children who grew up from the year 2000 all the way up to 2020 when Pop Smoke was around 20 years old. He got killed in 2020. He grew up when he was 12 years old. He was watching the war in Chirac at 12. His favorite artist was getting bodied, right? Not fake shootouts at Hot 97. They bodied Little JoJo. They was bodying niggas on Twitter and joking about it. This was going on when the old heads should have been paying attention, and they was dropping the ball, being old heads and doing dumb shit. And there was a younger generation who grew up, the appetite was murder. So this is a deaf culture. This is not hip hop. This is not your mama's hip hop. This is not the hip hop that we grew up on. This is the hate you gave little infants, fucks everyone. Man. We got to take credit for the fuck up that we fucked up. We dropped the ball. We created these are gremlins. This is a gremlin effect.
The problem.
Your point is
this is a gremlin effect.
Your point is, I agree with your point totally. What I push back on is the fact that it wasn't parody when NWA started, and I was on the West Coast from the East Coast. Everybody did not look at that as parody, and that's the misinformation.
Okay,
people actually thought that they were real gangsters.
Let me share something. Let me share something real quick. Sir Mix-a-Lot, Baby Got Back, right? Vanilla Ice, Young MC, right? There was a lot of parody rap coming out of the West Coast at that time. We was laughing at that shit, bro. We were not taking it serious.
Wait.
Let him go.
But this is misinformation. While they both did exist, I get it. I was living on the West Coast at that time, and I was from New York, and I was an artist in the industry at that time.
Okay,
so a lot of these people I actually know.
There's a fundamental.
And I brought NWA to New York. There was already Tolo there. There was already there was, like you said, there was some people that already existed that was parody. Egyptian Lover. There was a lot of people that they didn't take serious. NWA on the other hand.
But there's a fundamental difference. There's a fundamental difference that y'all are not acknowledging. Okay, this is what the difference is. When NWA came out, a lot of us that listened to it was secretly listening to it. And the reason why is because during that time period, late 80s, early 90s, a lot of us had both parents in the household. Okay. A lot of us had way more guidance. A lot of us had way more shaming. A lot of us had way more parental input.
Right.
The problem that happened that nobody wants to acknowledge, and it's from our generation, Gen X, is the explosion in teen pregnancy. The babies having babies. So what has ended up happening that nobody wants to acknowledge is that the worst of us, whether you like it or not, the worst of us have outbred the best of us. So when you see a Sexy Red being played, they're not listening to Sexy Red in private because the little girl that's listening to Sexy Red is listening to it because her mama listening to it. That's a fundamental difference. My father didn't listen to NWA. My grandmother didn't listen to NWA. My mother didn't listen to NWA. Nowadays, these kids, their parents are listening to the same music they're listening to.
That's right.
So there's no generation gap. It's all melded in together. So now the problem is you don't have the parents that's going to be like, what you listening to? Turn that off. You don't need to be listening to that. You know what I'm saying?
Also too, because I know for me, and I'm that's why I'm listening, because the NWA, I only learn from when I'm asking the older generation, because I wasn't around when NWA came out. But for me, I'm a hip hop fan, you know, and for me, I was blessed enough to have my dad in the house. So for me, you know, I was playing 50 all the time, and to the point where I remember one time I was playing Mini Men, and my father called me in a room like, turn that off. Like, it's not Mini Men trying to harm that man. And I really didn't understand what he was saying. I really thought my dad was hating, because like the way that hip hop is, like they're feeding it to us. Like, I was spent time with my father, but we talking 8 hours at school. So all of the excuse me, losing my train of thought. But when it comes to like just the peer pressure and things like that in the music, that's all day. But when I come in the house, my father is a couple hours maybe at nighttime when he go to work. And so for me, I was able to separate that, because my father did not play that. Like, he was on me about making sure that, you know, I knew the difference. And the thing is that, like, these same kids that was my age, I've seen tons of children when I was in high school. We lived in a good area, and they was going to the hood on purpose because this is what the music was telling them to do. I seen kids with two parents getting shot, and their parents didn't even know they lived two separate lives. And these are the same kids that are parents right now. And so their music is not changing the way they listen to music. I just was blessed enough to have that difference.
You know
my
what?
father drilling that in my head. But if you think about it, the generation that's having kids is us,
You
when
know
that
what?
50 was coming out, and the Jim Jones and the Jewels, and making sure the blood and the crit was something that was front and center. And
You know
you
what? You
had
know what's
children that had no clue what that was, and they was going to do it. I'm saying kids with tax. And matter of fact, I used to be in both, like, not on purpose, but people just love my energy in both areas. I used to bring people from the hood in the suburbs, and the people and the kids in the suburbs go, "Oh, you from this area? I'm blood. I'm this." And I'm like, "Yo," and the people and the young people from the hood would be like, "Yo, this is crazy." Like, it was two separate worlds,
but see,
one real and one fake. And these are the two generations having kids right now. And what we see is those same
what
children listen to music just
what
like the way they were.
what
What you just
this is
said,
what this is
Angry
what
Man, I just want to say this real quick. What you just said is really a clear indication that we sometimes overlook, is that we don't separate. I said it earlier. We don't separate the differences. And Angry Man, you go from there. I'll just leave it there. Go ahead, sir.
One thing is hard to separate it. If you really come from that, it's hard to separate it. You mentioned something about 50. Here's an interesting fact that most people might not know. And as much as I love 50, you know what I'm saying, I can identify with the way he came up. Did y'all know that around late 2000s, I seen a documentary where they were talking about certain cities where young kids kept coming into the hospital with bullet wounds and shit, then got shot up or whatever. They said what they noticed is that damn near every kid that came in there to get treated for bullet wounds, stab wounds, or whatever, always had a get rich or die trying tattoo on them. That's crazy.
Ooh, absolutely.
Ooh, what's interesting about that, Angry Man?
Hold on, Sean. I think with 50, what he I think when he came along, I think when Pac left, it left like a void in the game. And I think DMX kind of channeled some of that energy as far as the passion, the connection with people. But I think 50 came with that hit 'em up energy. And it's like like his music, his career almost embodied that moment of hit 'em up, where it's just like, he just taking aim at a lot of people. And I think it kind of like changed the direction. He kind of personified that time in rap when it was really not about how good you are, but what you really was doing in the street. And I think the criteria for MC changed, not just with him, but I think he kind of like, in my opinion, he kind of epitomized that moment where it was like, it really wasn't about your pen game or your articulation game, but was you really outside or not? And to this day, I feel like that really has become the criteria for artists instead of their actual talent. What you think about that?
I think that
oh, sorry, I don't know if you was asking.
Anybody.
I think that
Okay,
what we're missing is that the root of all of that is capitalism. Everybody got into what changed it is when hip hop became a business. And that's really what a lot of people overlook. And that's what I was talking about with NWA. I love NWA. I was one of the people who promoted them, who brought them to New York, all of that as far as introducing that music to New Yorkers. But I also was in the business. So like you said, Angry Man, it's hard to separate. I was able to separate the business from the reality. And that's that's where I speak from. It was a business.
But capitalism,
it was a business.
But capitalism is not the problem.
I didn't say.
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell you what the problem is. This is what the problem is, right? So when you look at hip hop, right, you look at Tupac's energy. What a lot of people gravitated towards Tupac wasn't the thoughtful Tupac, wasn't the revolutionary Tupac. It was the angry thug spitting at people, all of that, right? So you got that. When Tupac left, the next time you have DMX. Get at me. Let's take it back to the streets, motherfuckers, right? After DMX, Puffy had his run with the shiny suit. Then you had 50 come. There's a reason why Black youth gravitates to these types, right? The reason why is because around those time periods, Black youth was starving for masculine influence. Okay. And the problem is we identify masculinity strictly with aggressiveness. So in our mind, subconsciously, anything that's super aggressive, anything that's gangster, anything that's thugged out, that's what we identify as masculinity. So what we do, and it's messed up because in hip hop, they only give us two versions. They either give us 50 Cent shot 9 times, or they give us Puffy with the shiny suit. And where I come from, I'm not rocking with the shiny suit. I'm going to identify with the dude that was on the block. I'm going to identify with the dude and see the problem isn't capitalism. The problem isn't even the music. The problem is the circumstances that create the environment for somebody to even rap about that type of trauma.
That's what we looked up to.
But
we looked up to 50 Cent without the money, bro. We looked up to 50 Cent without the fame in the hood.
Facts.
Like, that's really what the problem is.
Facts. So it's not the money. A business is a business, right? And even capitalism, because a lot of people had these arguments about capitalism. Capitalism is not the problem. The problem is the greedy motherfuckers in capitalism. That's the problem.
And you're absolutely right, because you just said people looked up to 50 Cent the gangster. 50 Cent the gangster was after the money. Tupac the man spitting on people was after the money. What part don't y'all get?
No, I said it was
money.
Whoa.
But that's because we operate.
Wait.
Hold on. Prince Mazzani, jump in there. It seems like you want to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have a bunch of different perspectives, and I think it's all dope. Some saying it's capitalism, some saying it's the versions of hip hop they gave us. I think the problem is we stopped caring enough to check ourselves and our children. I think we got caught up in our self-image, the adults, and we started being our children's friend, and we started to want to be cool. And even the OGs in the game, they wanted to still hang on to that coolness, and they didn't want to, elevate into their role of fatherhood or motherhood or adulthood enough to care about what the children is doing. I think they wanted to be cool with the kids. You get what I'm saying? Right. And I think that's the problem, because it was a point in time in hip hop where it wasn't cool to be gangster. It was cool to be Kanye West with the book bag. I remember that time in hip hop. I remember the time in hip hop where J. Cole had the streets on lock and he was just being vulnerable, and Drake had the streets on lock. You know what I'm saying?
And depending on where you at. Depending on where you at.
People choose who they want to listen to. The marketers choose who they want to promote at the time. But I think at almost every time, whether it was NWA, Tupac, Biggie, J. Cole, the parents, the fathers, the mothers, the aunts, the uncles dropped the ball. And
I agree with that.
Just as much as we on this live and we talk about different generations of hip hop, we have so much influence that look how much people we touching. Look how much people Ilsophical's touching, Red Pill, Sean, all of us is touching so much people. And right now we're dictating not the whole world, not the mass media of people, but we're dictating the people who connect with us. And that's what we should have been doing in our neighborhoods. We should have been dictating what them little kids on the block was listening to, what they were doing, chess clubs, basketball. But instead we was on the block with them hanging out, or we was in the club. And that's what, to me, that's what the problem is. Not that Hot 97 keep playing Jay-Z record over and over. Yeah, but what we playing over and over in our neighborhoods.
No, there's absolutely a disconnect.
Hold on, I'm gonna add that real quick. That's a good point you made. I feel like in hip hop we have like this Peter Pan concept. It's like everybody's scared to grow up. It's like when you get a certain age, you can't rap anymore. It's like we have this focus, even though life is pretty long. It's thing like in Black culture and hip hop culture, all we recognize is 20 to 27, as if that's the only time period that's relevant or that can have some influence on the younger generation. How do y'all feel about that?
Well, that's why Snoop Dogg made Wiggle Wiggle, nigga. Like it don't even make sense.
That's what's pushed, and it's pushed for a reason. The reason why the industry pushes to keep the newer artists young is because when you're young, you don't know how to negotiate a contract. When you're young, you're more impressionable. You're
now,
more.
Whose problem is that?
Absolutely.
Is that the
But that's why I was
problem,
saying,
or is that our problem? That's our problem.
That's not anybody. That's not anybody's problem.
Right.
Because it's not anybody's problem. That's just a natural thing. Your brain isn't fully developed until you're 25 years old. So it's not a matter of making. See, one of our problems in our community, in my opinion, is we make people grow up too fucking soon. We got, you talk about 50. 50 wasn't gangster after the money. 50 was already gangster. 50 was on the block in Southside Jamaica Queen at 12 years old, hustling. You feel what I'm saying? So one of the problems is we have this issue, especially when it comes to boys, when it comes to young boys, right? Young boys are being pushed out of the house sooner and expected to be adults sooner. And this is where this trauma comes from, where they think they got to go out and hustle because their mom's struggling and they trying to hustle and make money to help their mom pay the bills or whatever. So then you got these dudes with this trauma. They get into music. Of course, they're going to rap about their pain because nobody else wanted to listen to it before that. Who did they tell their pain to? They can't tell it to their parents, especially if they sneaking out and hustling. They can't tell the parents what they're going through. So then they go out here to the industry, and the industry capitalizes on it because everybody wants to hear those stories because so many people can identify with those stories. The only problem is we have a negative outcome from that bullshit. You feel what I'm saying? Even though them expressing it is healthy. Them talking about it is healthy. The problem is people don't listen to it for the lesson in it. It's just like with Menace to Society. Everybody watches Menace to Society. They love O-Dog's character, but they never pay attention to the lesson at the end when Kane is talking about, yeah, I want to live, but now it's too late. Same thing with Boys in the Hood. Everybody, we watched those movies and we wanted to emulate the gangsters in those movies, but we didn't pay no attention to the lesson in it. The same thing with rap. We listen to the stories, but we don't want to pay attention to the lesson in it. And so it gets glorified. And then everybody wants to live that lifestyle, just like Homegirl was talking about. Because I know dudes back in the day that had two parents that was willing to pay for them to go to college, and they out there on the block with us. And it's
parents
like, what is you doing? What is you doing?
Lucky, jump in there. Lucky, something you want to say? Lucky, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want to get away from it. Maybe my thought process is a little different, but I'm gonna introduce it since everybody else is sharing theirs. I think the capitalist. I agree with the capitalism, but I think the profit is our influence. So I think if you look at just everything when it comes to Black people, it's not this until Black people do it. So I think the capitalization is the fact that they need our influence. It's the system. So if they set you up to be more in survival mode and in a broken environment, then then they get to capitalize off of the environment you are in many different ways, including entertainment. So if I have to keep selling you a particular energy. It's the same thing with media. Media, I believe, is designed to be a monster to play on your emotions. So if I can, especially music, if we're talking about music and everything, the gateways, we're talking about gatekeepers. The gatekeepers to yourself is what you see and how much you hear. So if I'm hearing and I'm looking at things that are affecting my spirit, I definitely think they can capitalize off the thing that they gain is our spirit. So I think that a lot of things that played into America about Black men being emasculated, all of that I think has a lot to do with gaining ownership over us. But I think it's a spiritual battle if we look a little deeper, because what do you gain when they're saying you selling your soul? They need something deeper than just you singing. It's not, if they can make money off your talent. We like the sound of stuff. That's not enough. They have to go deeper to emasculate you. You have to go deeper to do things in a sinister way that I feel that has a lot to do with your soul, that has a lot to do with people on drugs or feeling like they want to delete themselves based on the things that they did. I think it's a little bit deeper than we can probably fathom, but I don't think that there's a Bohemian Grove or people in dark clothes deleting children just off the fact of capitalism. I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to.
Well, that's where the talent comes from. The talent comes from your soul. You see what I'm saying? So when you're that's the whole point of selling your soul. When you take your talent, your God-given talent that comes from your soul, and then you compromise that for certain purposes, that's not good purposes. That's the definition of selling your soul.
Right.
And
I think people.
Hold on. Go ahead.
I think people pick and choose when they want to sell their soul, though, to me, because it's like this big thing of like, oh, they sold their soul for a large lump sum, but what about the person that know they're not supposed to be using their time at that job that's not leading them anywhere? If you know deep down inside you're not supposed to be there, you're supposed to be doing something else, then you selling your soul, whether it be for $10 an hour or whether it be for a larger lump sum. So that's why I'm gonna always bring it back to really understanding the body, because it's like you're gonna choose. Your choices are going to be when you're older based on what you stack your bricks with. So if you are going through detrimental things at home and they're not getting healed, that's going to determine where you pick and choose to sell your soul at, because where your soul is damaged at and it feels lack, like I said, majority of us are making moves off of feeling lack. So if your soul feel hurt in these areas and it's not healed, then you 30 years old may be making a decision that a 7-year-old or 8-year-old you have went through that you never touched on. And so you end up making these decisions to either learn from them or you're doing it and you just don't want to fix it.
I like that point. Go ahead, Red. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I got to get on this Zoom. I just wanted to share that based off of my research that there's never really been a time in the United States of America where the Black body, both the Black man and the Black woman, were not being exploited.
Absolutely.
Capitalism by way of insurance was the backbone of the USA. Absolutely. Right? Capitalism by the way of insuring Black bodies. Capitalism by the way of turning Black women's wombs into a breeding farm, which basically became a factory. Absolutely. That's what America is built off of. Absolutely. Hollywood in its inception through the Jazz Singer and what they called the movie, the Birth of a Nation and whatnot. From the inception of Hollywood, they've been exploiting the stereotypes and the tropes about what? About Black people, the exploitation of our ignorance, the exploitation of our labor, the exploitation of our spirit, the exploitation of our soul, the exploitation of keeping us completely in the darkness is what has powered the quote unquote capitalistic quote unquote model and whatnot. That model is a dog eat dog model. That model is what is imperialism and other things are anchored in it. That model is being pushed back against by all of these BRIC countries, and everybody outside of America is not fucking with that model no more. It's considered to be defunct and whatnot. Over in the Middle East, the reason why the UAE and these Muslim countries are popping is because they don't do usury and they don't do that Rothschild bank shit. That's what people are pushing back against. That's what they're banging when they just approved this Bitcoin today and whatnot. The Bitcoin, regardless of what people may have to say about it, it represents a thought. It represents a whole worldview. It's not the capitalistic worldview. It's not the communism worldview. It's a worldview that sits right in the middle, and it deals with people finally being able to have to build wealth and not be wealth off of slave labor, sweat equity, blood ties. You know, it's not old money. This is not the Vanderbilts, the people they got rich today or tomorrow when Bitcoin starts going crazy, because you're about to see a whole new wealth class in 2024 of people who used to hustle on the dark web selling cards and shit. Motherfuckers that was trapping and whatnot on the Silk Road. They're gonna be the new billionaires. I know somebody right now that if this shit hit, if Bitcoin, he did the math, if the Bitcoin hits 67 bands, this nigga's a billionaire, and this is a hood nigga. But he got about 1,000 somewhat Bitcoins because he's a fucking drug dealer and he was on the motherfucking dark web getting right, and he got locked up and his wallet froze. But he's about to get rich. So I'm saying this to say that this whole shit that we're seeing right now is completely being disrupted. We got to be the controllers of all things fantasy, the fantasy complex industry, comic books, cartoons, motherfucking children's books, toys, video games. These are all of the things that are programming our minds from 0 to 7. These younger generations is lost if you don't get them from 0 to 7. I don't give a fuck what nobody is saying. If you don't program these star seeds, because they have figured they came here to do something other than to dance on fucking TikTok and to be thoughts and whatnot. They are too intelligent. They are too digital. They are too thoughtful. They are too imaginative for us to be doing the shit that we're doing to them. Throwing phones and tablets in front of their faces and giving them fucking sexy red and GMO food to eat all day. The parents are dropping the ball because they some ignorant motherfuckers who grew up on Snoop Doggy Dogg, NWA, and all of that bullshit. That is bullshit. It's not real. It's not feeding us. It's not progressing. I'ma just leave it at this. If hip hop was real, we would all have Bitcoins. Nipsey Hussle was really the only progressive rapper. The rest of these niggas is agents. They are the boule. They are the. You want to know what a gatekeeper is? A gatekeeper is a nigga that didn't tell you how to get money off of the app store. A gatekeeper is a nigga that didn't tell you about Bitcoin because he's sitting around all of them white boys for years when they was talking about it and they didn't say nothing. That's what the gatekeepers are. The gatekeepers are these athletes and these actors who willingly let their financial advisors take all their bread and invest it in is it real? That's the fucking boule. That's the gatekeepers. That's the ankle grabbers. And those are the people that the Weinsteins, the Epsteins, and every single one of these Steins been running all kind of plays on. And we've been looking up to these people like they greater than us. Come to find out that these are just fucking the glorified help. These are real fuck boys. So you go in the direction of those that you follow. So if you continue to follow the quote unquote Pied Piper, your ass is going off of the cliff. You're gonna sink with the Titanic, and nobody gives a fuck. Nobody is here to hold your hand because you're supposed to know better. We old enough. We, like somebody said earlier, life is giving us all kind of lessons every day. We are all in class. I don't give a fuck what level of intelligence we consider ourselves on. Popular culture and life is teaching us wild lessons if we really sit back and pay attention to every god thing that's going on. So ignorance of the law is no excuse.
No excuse.
No excuse.
You drop it out. And the fact that we're talking about these sellouts and how we able to compromise ourselves, I want to definitely tap in and go to a clip that expounds upon that, because I feel like the way they exploit us a lot of times is through our sexuality. I think our sexuality is too pushed out into the mainstream, where it's like it done affected our relationships, and our women are showing too much. You know, our men are overly sexualized. And I think that's one of the main ways that these gatekeepers keep us down, is by exploiting our sexuality. So I want to just play a clip real quick and get you guys' opinion on it, because this is not new, how they deal with us. And it's definitely an old racist trope as far as this buck breaking and the way they humiliate us. So I just want to play something real quick. First, we're going to start with the good brother Malcolm.
I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community and have been made celebrities.
Studio heads, what they do affects every part of the business, from producers, writers, actors. They own finance companies, the whole thing.
And did you know him before the party?
And I did not know him. I heard of him. We had never, ever even had a conversation, okay? So I just heard, and actually, I was actually looking forward to meeting him.
But instead of a professional meet and greet, Cruz claims Bennett leered at him from across the room.
And he...
It was a clip of Terry Crews talking about when he was at an audition and he felt he was actually emasculated in front of his wife by I think it was Harvey Weinstein, and he got grabbed and he got basically embarrassed and buck broke in front of his wife. So I want to ask the panel, why does Hollywood have such a inclination, and why they have such a constantly feel the need to exploit us sexually? Like Lucky said, it's deeper than just capitalism. It's actually like almost a parasitic energy that they're trying to get from us to use and deceive the world through our sexual prowess, through our talents. So how do y'all feel about Hollywood's infatuation with exploiting our sexuality? Anybody could take the floor.
I think it's just like when they castrated or when they did with Sarah Barton. I think that they have this fetish, even if you look at the porn industry. What did they just show? That the Black ebony is the most searched in that. So I think that there is a deeper fetish, but I also think it's, I don't want to say conspiracies on YouTube because they're conspiracies, but typically they're said that every time you humiliate or delete a Black person, especially a Black man who's supposed to be leader over Black women, then you do leave their women vulnerable, but you also regain power over their soul or how they're perceived on the land. So I think that all of that kind of plays into it. So it's all sexual. I think there is something about us being seen sexually. Like if Sexy Red was Caucasian, would she really be as popular? I just don't think so. I think it's deeper. They have to humiliate us for financial gain.
Yeah, I feel like the reason why I keep emphasizing capitalism is because it seems to be the root of it to me, and I try to get to the roots. And this whole design, as Red Pill said, was designed long before entertainment. Malcolm X was just speaking about it. So we're speaking about something that has existed for a long time, and we value often fame and acceptance when they value influence, which is ironic because we are the influencers. We don't value influence.
But see, that's where the disconnect comes in. You can't have influence in a capitalistic country if you don't engage in capitalism.
That's not true. That's just simply true. Let me tell you why. Let me explain you. Now, spiritually, you might be right. I'm not disputing that part, but influence is sometimes a lot more valuable than the capital that we envision is valuable. So it is still capitalism. They're just valuing their capital is the influence. Our capital is the currency.
No, the
problem. Let me get in there. Go ahead, AM. Go ahead.
The problem is this, okay? Influence can be a very powerful thing. But the problem is those who are at the top of capitalism are the puppet masters of the influence. You understand? So if you're not like when you're in a game, okay, you can't ignore the rules of the game. The problem with us, in my opinion, as far as Black people, is those of us that are smart enough to understand what the game is, we're the ones that refuse to play it. And so what ends up happening is the ones that play the game are the ones that are easily manipulated. So when those people get to the top, get even close to the top, they're easily compromised. It's the ones that actually have the ability to know what the game is, that would actually have enough integrity to actually stick to their guns once they get to a position of power. That's the problem. The ones who get to a position of power are the weak-minded ones. The ones that don't get to a position of power are always the ones that, like the ones that actually have power, we always try to work outside of the system, which won't work in this system, if you get what I'm saying.
I absolutely
let me ask y'all a question though, because I still want to know, like, why do y'all feel like and was that clip working? Because my computer was chopping. Was that
Yeah, it worked.
I've seen the clip.
Yeah, it worked.
Okay. I'm gonna play it again because I thought it was messing up and I wasn't able to play clearly. But before I play it, I just want to ask this question. We can come back and answer it. Why? I still want to hear from y'all, everybody's opinion. Why does Hollywood feel such the need to have such an interest in our particular sexuality more so than?
Let me answer that question.
Yes, go ahead.
So, sex is a very powerful, sexual energy is a very powerful thing. So as we all know, you have two sides to you. You have a higher self and a lower self. The more Hollywood or the more these people can appease to your lower nature, which sometimes deal with your sexual nature, is going to keep you in your lust, is going to keep you in your greed, is going to keep you just sucked into a reality where you're not paying attention to what's being done behind your back. So if they appease to us mentally, you know how strong and connected and unified we would be. They don't want that. Of course, they're going to appease to us sexually so we can be focused on ass, tits, butt implants, booty injections, who fucking who, whose daughter is that. You get what I'm saying? So this is why they go so hard to over-sexualize everything. Now, on the flip side to that, spiritually, sex is a creative force. Just for example, a man could be in the store and he see a woman. Automatically, this woman walk past and arouses him, and now he wants to probably buy a flower. He wants to do certain things and become a certain type of gentleman that he never would have thought of if she never showed up. This is the power of sexual energy. You get what I'm saying? Sexual energy has a great purpose in the universe. It does a lot for the universe. It helps inspire us. But when they take it and they flip it and use it against us, sexual energy, that's our magic. That's our medicine, sexual energy. We did everything and we worship the vagina. We worship the penis. As crazy as that sound, when you go to where the Muslims go pray, that the thing that they're praying to is it's nothing but a vagina. You get what I'm saying? We always worship the sacred aspects of sexuality or sexual energy. They know that as well, but they know how to keep us indulged in the bad part of it, which is just lust, greed, and it produces a whole bunch of bad vibrations. So that's why I feel Hollywood or these elites try to keep us in that sexual nature and over sexualize everything.
Can I add my point before we go? Before we go to the clip?
And we go to the conversation.
Buck breaking. The practice known as buck breaking was a particularly cruel and sadistic method employed by white supremacists and slave owners to assert dominance, humiliate, and subjugate enslaved men. Buck breaking was prevalent in the Caribbean and other parts of the Americas where slavery thrived, especially during periods of increased slave rebellions. The objective of this brutal practice was to strip enslaved men of their dignity, emasculate them, and instill fear among the slave population. By subjecting them to public sexual abuse, the white oppressors sought to degrade these men both physically and psychologically. The process of buck breaking typically began with the public humiliation and physical punishment of the enslaved man. Stripped naked, he was subjected to severe floggings in front of an assembled crowd, which often included other slaves. This public spectacle served as a means to dehumanize and debase the individual, reducing him to a mere object of amusement and terror.
Wow.
Wow. They sexually abusing slaves.
Wow.
PTSD.
Yeah.
PTSD.
Wow.
So
remember earlier I said
I think Tori.
we didn't mature. We're not maturing. We're redefining. That is a display of what I was speaking to.
Hold that thought, Sean. Hold that thought, Sean. I want Red, and I know Red gotta go soon. I want Red T to hop in. Go ahead, Red. Speak your mind, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that the fact that they were showing us what they were doing on the sex farms, what they were doing when they were buck breaking, and why there's a specific group of people, right, who we were talking about with the Epsteins and the Goldsteins and all of them. They have historically been known to be the purveyors of filth. They have historically known to be the inverters of what is known as sacred. They've always perverted it historically because they don't teach our people this, and our people don't have, because they're taught, because our people are taught into boule and three-letter organizations who only do fish fries and barbecues, and they're not teaching the people, right? They're protectors of the truth, so they would never talk about who the Sabians are. They would never talk about the Franks. They would never talk about the Zionists. They don't teach you these things. You have to learn these things from scholars who are outside of the fringes of these controlled opposition, right? So the reason why Hollywood focuses on our lower self, because the same people that's running Hollywood is running San Fernando Valley. San Fernando Valley is the porn industry. The people that are running the porn industry are the same people who come from the place that has the most child predators on the planet, and that is it real? The same place where they just found a tunnel in Brooklyn that went where? Underneath the Children's Museum. Okay. These people, everywhere that they go, people come up missing. Everywhere that they go, women get exploited. Everywhere that they go, pornography follows them. Everywhere that they go, all type of quote unquote perversions and kinks follow them. So we're dealing with people who are obsessed. Dr. Frances Cress Wilson broke it down in her book that is required reading amongst anybody considering themselves woke. Moving onward would be the ISIS papers. You don't have to, once you read the ISIS papers, speculation goes right out the window, because she broke it down in a collegiate way as a doctor. She diagnosed the issue of inferiority complexes that these people are going through because of penis envy and a whole bunch of other things like the lack of melanin. It is a biological recessive versus dominant situation that we've been going through since the time of the Punic Wars. This is not something that we need to be wasting time trying to wrap our minds at. This is a lifelong, this is an age-old situation. The fact that when you come into the room, if you melanated, especially as a man with a phallus and whatnot, you could walk through a sea of 1,000 of them. I promise you. Just walk through them niggas with your head high. They will basically fall into a different place of quote unquote white fragility. Why? Because you're reminding them, no matter how much money they have, no matter how much influence they have, no matter how much pillaging and raping of the land they do, there is something that they'll never have, and that is something that they can't buy. That's your melanin. Okay, that's that connection to the earth, to the quote unquote cosmos and whatnot. That you saw that in the movie Spider-Man 3, when he was showing you what Venom was doing to Peter Parker. That melanin, you understand? That melanin, that DNA, the fact that they chase the sisters down and want to procreate with y'all because of that melanin, because y'all are the same way that they breastfed from y'all, the same way that the Moors and the African women that they brought with them, they raised up these Europeans. The same thing that I was talking about earlier about the quote unquote black nobility and whatnot. You will find out in Europe that there has to be, and there will be, it'll come out that there's some niggas behind that curtain. It always has been. Why would they show their hand? Why would they let you know who they are? You know what I mean? Why? But who knows how to defeat us more than us? There's nobody on the planet that knows how to checkmate us more than we do. So yeah, they deal with your lower self. Edward Bernays, the century of self. They market to your lower self. They market to your horniness. They market to your desires. They market to the unmastered version of yourself. Remember, you only meet God, and you can only meet the goddess in you through self-mastery, right? Mastery and non-discipline can't coexist. So as long as they keep you debased, demoralized, and in your lower self, in your sunken self or your sunken place, you'll never elevate and be able to make these people. You'll never get out of this place of being a mindless consumer. You'll never get out of survival mode on Maslow's pyramid. You'll always be at the base of the pyramid. The only way that you're gonna rise up the pyramid is if you cut your motherfucking that you have to square your corners.
and you have to kill desire, and you have to master self, and you can't deal with all of this victimhood shit. You got to elevate. And with that being said, love and light to y'all.
Peace, Fred. Appreciate you.
Love,
Appreciate
dog.
you.
Peace.
Peace. CJ, since you come from a different era, I want you to speak about how you feel that the over-sexualization has affected your current era of rap and interest in today's culture. Like, what aspects have you seen? Have you noticed?
We don't date no more. We just exchange numbers and we smash. That's really what's going on. We're not in real relationships out here for real. You know, like I've said this before, and you know, this is one thing I just, maybe this wasn't his message, but it seemed like it. This is one thing I disagree with Kevin Samuels on. How being this high value man, the man that makes this certain amount of money, makes you so desirable. I don't agree in my generation. What makes you desirable in my generation is if you can lay the wood, my boy. If you can't lay the wood, you ain't gonna even be in a relationship for real. Like that, or it's not gonna be a meaningful one anyway, because they value what you can do sexually, and men the same way. Like I hear guys that will literally talk about wanting this good woman, wanting to take care of a woman, a feminine woman, all that stuff, all the talking points, right? That I agree with. They'll play games with her and still go rock with the woman that ain't about nothing. So the way that we're over sexualized, it's hitting our family the hardest, because what happens when you just smashing and linking up? Kids come from it. And now we fighting in court for something that's really just supposed to be God given, man. So that's where I think the biggest impact is just in our relationships and family, bro.
Key.
You said who?
You, Key. What's up? Good.
Oh, so for me, with the sexual exploitation, right? I didn't grow up watching porn. I never grew up watching porn. Even today, to this day, as a grown adult, I still close my eyes when there is sex scenes on TV. So for me, right, I'm able to see very clear, because I don't have any of those sexual attachments, anything that I've conquered in the relationships that I've had, where all my relationships stimulate from love. They don't stimulate from anything more than that. I've never had experience with random sex. I've never even thought about it. That's something I can't even connect to, because I've never connected to it when I was younger. So with the whole sexual exploitation thing, it's always, I'm going to keep saying it all the time, right? So for me, right, it was food, right? So anytime we are going to be in a place of overly stressed, right? When Red Pill just said self-mastery, right? Discipline. You can't not have discipline if you don't have stress management, because anytime you don't feel safe, your body doesn't feel safe, it's going to send you anywhere that's going to make it feel calm. And whatever you latched on to as a younger adult, when you went through what you went through, like I said, quote, quote, when I went through these things, I didn't speak about it. I didn't heal them. I became a better person in this area. I became a better runner. Everybody's story, right? When you look at anybody's story, people come up off of tragedy stories, and then growing from a tragic situation, oh, he didn't have this, and then he overcame that. When it comes down to sexual exploitation, right? A lot of us are already hooked from porn. We already hooked from it being passed down in our genes. It already being hooked from some of us, our family members touching us too early. And so when we get older, there are things that are going to exploit that or bring those out when we go into those stressful phases. So why do I think Hollywood uses that? One, Red Pill already said it, but that's because that's what they do, because they are already constantly always in a state of mayhem just because of not having the same amount of melanin that we do. And so white people have been able to had the best position, which is to sit and watch. Like they literally have been in position to sit and watch everything. But why would you not when you're the weakest gene? Like you're the weakest race. So you have to sit and watch to be able to use what you can to beat the winner or to beat the stronger person. And so that's what they use to manipulate themselves, stealing and being over sexualized and touching on each other, sex in the same sex and sexing animals. That's been their culture. And so they have to do what they're used to. Just like when it boils down to categorizing rap, right? Oh, NWA is this group, or Kanye West is backpack music. Like, we let them categorize that because that's how they have to understand. We don't got to go through those things. We can just feel and understand. We can feel the music. We can pop lock. We got yo, yo, yo. Those mean 3 different things, 4 different things. You could be saying, yo, what's good? Yo, what you want? Yo, what you come in, like, it means it. So they don't have any of those connections, and so they have to use that to get us, because we deem sex as a sacred act. It's important to us. It's meant to bond. It's meant to build and bring in warriors and scientists and agriculture and creativity, and so they have to do that. And I'm not even at this point. It's just, okay, if that's how they move, how do I heal from the things I need to heal? How do I take care of my body? How do I be the best part of myself as a human being? I have rules. I need to be going to bed. I have to have structure. I have to be taking care of myself. I have to be stress-free. I have to be eating right. I have to be exercising. I have to be getting sunlight. If you're not doing any of those rules, you will be exploited, because nobody want to go to bed. Oh, I can't go there. I got to go to bed. I can't do that. I can't eat that. When you already not, like, I've had some of the most, I've been addicted to food since I've been younger. I had to heal those things. I can't get exploited by many things because I have to turn down the things that want to exploit me on my own self. I don't eat none of the things that I would want to eat. Like, I don't eat no dairy. I don't eat no white sugar. I'm not eating that. And those were things that I would have never, ever thought I could get rid of. I was fat as shit. And so when it comes to exploitation, not watching other people have sex that I'm not supposed to be seeing. I'm not joining in that. So we already exploit ourselves just from the daily usage of not treating ourselves as the proper humans we're supposed to. And then number 2 is they have to do that because that's how they operate. So that's all I wanted to share on that part.
Hey, jump in there. I would like your opinion on this. How do you feel about the over-sexualization of us through Hollywood?
I don't even think it's that deep. I think Hollywood is just a place that was started by people that was on some sexual deviancy, and that's just their tradition. That's just the type of shit they on. That's what I think it is. I don't think it's no deeper than that. That's what.
So I'm gonna just piggyback because I got to. It is that deep because we dying. Like, I don't want to say it ain't that deep, man. We dying, bro. We dying. And we not just dying from being exploited from sexual. Like, we're dying from heart disease. We know we're not supposed to be eating that. You go to the doctor and the doctor tell you you're not supposed to be eating that. You go home and still eat it. That's wrong.
No, we're dying. We're dying because of our ignorance.
Yes, but I just said you have to do your due diligence of becoming better. That's what our job is.
Okay,
so
but
when
you
it
can't.
Comes to ignorance. Go ahead.
Okay, but here's the problem. The problem is, look, for everything that white people have done historically, I'm not ignoring that, but we have this tendency as Black people to make everything about him. Everything.
Who's him? I'm sorry.
To the point where we ignore the shit that we're responsible for, that we're doing. Like for instance, you look at Terry Crews' situation, right? When that dude did that to him, he made a big deal out of it, but you accepted it. When that dude did that to him, he should have knocked him the hell out. Career be damned. But he didn't. And the reason why he didn't is because he didn't want to mess up his career. So again,
but you got to dig deeper than that, though. Why don't you want to? You can't just think of the first thought.
No, I don't.
Why don't you want to mess up your career? Where did that come from? Where does that even come from? Where is the fact that if I stand up from doing this, that I'm gonna mess up my? Where does that actually come from? Where do we get that thought and attachment to from the beginning? That's not true.
Angry Man's touched on it earlier.
first of all,
No, that's the point of what I'm saying. He's saying that,
you know,
I'm just asking, right? Are you just saying that, like, because you said him, so I'm trying to figure out what is the him part, because when it comes down to the choices that we make, they come from what we decide they come from.
No, what he's saying is him as in like white culture and white society, as if how we always blame it on them. And
That's what I wanted to. But that's what I was asking. That's why I was saying, where does that thought initially come from? Like, to say, if I punch this person in the face, I'm going to lose my career. That is not a natural thought. If somebody's, as a human being, we naturally have the right, when you don't feel protected, to do whatever you want, because that's nature's law. So where is that? Even with the duality of the movies, right? And what you said, the Boys in the Hood and the Juice and all of those things. There's always characters that's trying to show you right and wrong, and those are fed to us too. When it comes to Juice, teaching us duality and things of that nature,
okay,
that's where you coming from.
But I think it comes from lack, though. I think
I've been saying lack the whole time.
No, that's first of all, no, that's that's the problem. You're not supposed to be taking your cues for how you're supposed to live your life from Juice or Minister Society. What that came from was his weak character. That's what that came from. That came from him being in a position to where he could either compromise himself in order to continue to have a career in Hollywood, to live the lifestyle that he wanted to live, or he could have maintained his integrity by punching that dude out and just dealing with the consequences afterwards. But it was a personal decision that he made. There's no look. The thing is, as Black people, we got to understand the concept of personal responsibility and actually take responsibility for our actions and what we're doing. The biggest problem with us in this country, in this culture, is that whenever we do something goofy or whenever we do something wrong, the first thing we want to do is say, oh, well, you know, the reason why I did it is because of my circumstances and because of the country I live in and because of, you know, whatever, white supremacy, whatever. Like, that can't always be the excuse. That can't always be the excuse.
And I agree with that. That's why all of my answers have been you. Like, I've never given any answer that has not been yourself.
But that's why I said it's not. That's why I said that situation is
one?
not.
I'm sorry, what situation? Which one?
When you're talking about the over sexualization of Black people,
yes.
That's what I mean by that situation. In my opinion, is not that deep. Of course, sex is power. Oscar Wilde said that everything is about sex except sex. Sex is about power. So sex is definitely about power. But the problem is the people that are put in those situations are given a choice. They're given a choice. It's just like in the Bible when Lucifer is having a conversation with the Almighty, and he's saying that basically humans are corruptible and they're easily corrupted. And the Almighty says, well, have you considered my servant Job? He said, well, if you remove your protection from him, I'll make him curse you to your face. But when he removed his protection from Job, Job had everything taken from him, even his children, and he still didn't curse God. So at the end of the day, the challenge for Black people is, what are you willing to compromise? Are you going to stand on business, or are you going to allow yourself to be over-sexualized because there's some benefit in it? There is a level of personal responsibility. Nobody that goes to Hollywood has to do any of that. I know people who went to Hollywood in order to be a star or whatever, and they got presented with that and they chose not to do it. They chose not to do it. A lot of these people we talking about that's being over-sexualized, they are willing participants of it. They don't have to be a part of it.
I also feel like the fact that we don't have certain resources and outlets in our own community, not to make excuses for it, but I think it leads to people compromising themselves for opportunities because we can't provide it for our own people. So some people rather go through an initiation or some type of humiliation because they know they're going to get a bag from the European but we're not able to provide that service for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? I got a brother I'm working with now. It's like he's on probation or whatever, but he has a black woman who's like his PO. And every time he try to make some progress, he get a job, she creates another hurdle, So sometimes we try to work with our own people, and we rather sell out to the other coach because we know at least we're gonna get a reward for it. We try to be upstanding with our own people, and it don't get us anywhere. How y'all feel about that?
Well, again, that goes right back to what I just got through saying about personal responsibility. It's the same thing with what KRS-One was talking about hip hop, where everybody complains about how hip hop is in the hands of other people. And he broke it down. He said back in the day, the first record labels was the Sugar Hill record label and another record label. I can't remember the name of it, but they were owned by black people. And those black people exploited the black people, the young black people that was signed to them. So it's like you in this situation where you try to deal with the brother man and you get screwed over. Now you want to deal with the other man, you get screwed over, but at least you get a bag out of getting screwed over. So that is another thing that is our issue. We got to stop fucking each other over to where it's like, if you look at some groups, right? The reason why they're so close knit and the reason why they will only work within their group is because they know there's more of a benefit to work with their group than to work with somebody outside. Somebody once said, and I can't remember who this quote came from, but somebody once said, a group of people will never be able to progress if their progression is dependent upon another group of people. Your progression has to be contingent upon your group. And the problem with our group is we got so much bullshit going on that we don't want to check. And in my personal opinion, I feel like we keep the focus on the other man and we never really look at what we got going on and what we need to fix. You feel me? And I'm not saying the other man ain't got issues and ain't a problem in certain aspects, but there's a lot of stuff that we could be doing that we refuse to do. When I'm up here on YouTube and I'm trying to do my YouTube thing, the people that's trolling me, the people that's coming at me crazy is not other groups of people. It's my own people. Mm-hmm. It's my own people that's hating on me. It's my own people that's you know what I'm saying, got a problem with me. Like right now, if I go to you look at O Block in Chicago, the average white dude is not gonna want to go to that block. But guess what? I'm not gonna want to go to that block either. Because the same thing that he's worried about, I'm worried about. I shouldn't have to do that. I should be able to go to any neighborhood that's a black neighborhood and be welcomed in that shit. You feel what I'm saying? But it's the bullshit.
Isn't that kind of, I just want to say what she was speaking to, because I think that what she's speaking to is the reason. Imagine the people who conquered and won constantly creating issues in an environment, in a mindset of you being a consumer, whether it's because if we keep you in this mindset, if we keep you in this state, you'll constantly keep perpetuating the same things. It's going to just keep happening to the point where there is no system. We are the system, right? To what you're saying.
But
so,
Lucky, who controls your mindset?
I control my mindset, and I'm gonna say to a certain degree, because I can have this mindset, right? But if I'm constantly put in a situation or put to think of circumstances above my morals, above anything like that, obviously I'm gonna want to get a meal or whatever before I deal with morals. So what I'm saying is, what I'm kind of understanding both of what y'all are saying, she's pretty much speaking to the cause of it. Yes, I understand I have my own choices, but why is that even a factor of the person to know that I'm in this situation, the same person that more than likely is responsible for us even being in these situations? So when you go into a black neighborhood, you're not highly accepted the way that you would seem fit, is because they're in a situation where you may have what they want, whether it's a chain, whether it's something that's getting me some sort of benefit. So that is, if you're talking to people with that type of mindset in abundance to consume stuff or to also buy into stuff or sell out in the situation to be accepted or to be in a better situation, I think that's what I'm understanding is the problem. It's not whether or not we have a choice, but our choice can easily be compromised based on circumstances that we're put in or environments. You get what I'm saying? Like the rapper.
Okay, but,
Yeah,
okay,
I could
but,
want to speak. Go ahead.
okay, but here's the problem, right? You said something about a group of people that conquered another group of people, right?
Yeah.
The group of people that conquered another group of people are not gonna one day just decide, you know what, I don't want to be a conqueror no more, and I'm gonna give up this power. That's not how that works. So this idea that we have as a group of people that if only these people would stop doing this, or if only these people would stop doing, that's never gonna fucking happen. As Brother Malcolm put it, he said, you don't ask for power, you don't beg for power, you take it.
Take it.
That's how power works. So when I'm talking about the mind frame, the brother earlier, he quoted this book, right? ISIS papers, right? So at the end of the day, when we got all of these scholars that we came up with, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Henrik Clark, James Baldwin, Brother Malcolm, all of these different scholars that were trying to teach us to think differently. The problem is we have not decided to think differently. What we're doing is we're stuck in this state of victimhood. And the problem is, I'm not saying that we're not genuinely victims, but as long as we remain in the state of victimhood, we're still in that survival state that you just talked about. And we're constantly thinking defensively and not offensively. You see what I'm saying?
Hop in there. What's your opinion on the conversation?
Who?
Prince.
My opinion, I agree with both of them. I agree with all three of y'all, actually. I can understand where Tori's coming from. I understand where Angry Man coming from. Even Lucky, she's agreeing with both of them as well, just in different views. You know, my opinion is, you know, poverty breeds violence. And I could see how being in a certain situation or things not being in your favor, especially your skin color, money, food, whatever the case may be, you personally, you might can rise above the occasion. You might can rise above the poverty or, you know, the mental illness, but the people around you probably can't evolve above the mental illness. And that's where the disconnect comes in. Yes, I can personally work on myself and get to a higher state consciously, spiritually, physically. But the people around me are still in this mental ill state where they want to kill, rob, and do a bunch of overly sexual things. After a while, it does take a toll on your body, but yes, you still have to be disciplined in your actions and in your works. And both are right. Both are right. It's a collective work that we have to do. If I just save myself, who does that help? Just me. You get what I'm saying? But if I can save,
let me interject. I love your point. Let me interject real quick, Am. I think a lot of times, I love what he said because I feel like we're not a monolith, but we are to a degree. I think there's an innate need in our people of all races to be accepted. We may not want to admit it, but we all want to be accepted and fit in with our racial group, with our gender group. So if you see that the group is constantly going towards a certain direction, no matter how hard you may try, everybody's not built to fight against the grain because deep down inside of us, a lot of us, it's like the Locke said, he said, I'd rather be broke together than rich alone. So that means it's a part of us that regardless of where we at, whether right or wrong, we still want to be aligned with our social group, whether they're on the negative route or a positive route. So does that sometimes override the right thinking because we want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves? Because no matter how much you want to be divine, how intelligent you want to be, most people don't want to be alone. So what's your response to that, AM?
Well, we definitely want to be together. Human beings need socialization. We need to be around each other. We need to be around people that are of the same culture, so the same kind of, kindred spirits. That's just a human thing, right? I wanted to address what Sun God said. Poverty doesn't breed violence and crime. Poverty and proximity to wealth breeds poverty and breeds crime. Okay, so it's not just poverty itself that breeds crime, because you can go to other countries where there's poverty and they're not committing crimes, but the reason why is because they don't have proximity to ridiculous wealth. Like if you're here in America and you live in Queensbridge, you could quite literally be in hell and you could look across the water and see heaven. So that's what causes crime, is the fact that you're right there, you're that close to a better life. So why can't you have it? You feel what I'm saying? So I just wanted to clarify that part. But what you're saying, Ilosophical, is like, yeah, we do want to be together. And what annoys me is that if you're the type of person that gets the right state of mind in order to improve your life and improve your family's life, your direct family, like the people in your household, the closer a Black person gets to any type of prominence, we're immediately ostracized from the rest of us. You feel what I'm saying? Like I literally have to be careful about where I go now because the car I drive and shit like that. So it gets to the point where if you want to help Black people, you have to help them from a distance. You can't be standing on Slauson, trying to help Black folk the way Nipsey did, because
literally
that type of shit happens. You feel what I'm saying? So yeah, there is a need for us to want to be together. You know what I'm saying? But again, it goes back to the problem that I said we have. And that does come from what the young lady was talking about. That is a direct effect of the socialization in this country to where we hate each other. You feel what I'm saying? That needs to be fixed. If we can't fix that, we're not going to be able to do nothing. You feel what I'm saying? Because there's this hatred that Black people have for each other, specifically for the Black man. Like there's this insatiable hatred because Black men half the time can't even be cool with each other. Even though we can identify with being Black men, we all can identify with the struggles that Black men go through and what we have to deal with. And then it'll be another Black man to be coming at you crazy. You feel me?
I think that's by nature. You have yin and yang in nature, and not everybody is going to get along, no matter what skin complexion you are. Just you got different tribes, you got different animals, different species. You got lions in a lion kingdom. They're not going to get along because I'm an alpha, you are alpha, and in this alpha, certain energies reign, and you can't be in the same area or this proximity as me. That's just the way it is. So you got Bloods versus Crips. I mean, you had tribes versus tribes before it was Bloods versus Crips. You get what I'm saying?
But here's the thing about that. There's a fundamental difference between not getting along and hating each other. Like there's a large gap between that. Like two people, me and Ilosophical, can have issues and not really get along with each other. But that don't mean he hate me. That don't mean I hate him. You see what I'm saying? I'm not going to go out of my way to do something to him. Like he could live next door to me and I could be like, man, I don't really get along with that dude, but we can still be civil.
Right.
When you have a hatred for one another, it's when you go out of your way. It's when the guy's driving down the block in a Ferrari and the niggas on the block want to kill him just because he got a Ferrari. You feel what I'm saying? That type of hatred. When you don't even want to see your brother do well. You feel me? You don't want to live and let live. See, even when you brought up the animals, that's a good point. But you got to think about this. Even a lion, once he eat an antelope and get his fill, the other antelope can walk by him. He's not going to jump on him.
But
that's
no, you ain't speaking about.
Go ahead.
Oh, that was you. So
go ahead, Sean. Go ahead, Sean.
What's interesting is I'm listening to everybody, and the valid points that are very relative to the totality of it all. Problem is, it creates a cycle because there aren't too many. I don't even want to use the word problem because that's part of it. Like you said, hatred, Angry Man, and I challenge you and everybody, including myself, to try and remove that word of hatred, because it's not particularly hatred, it's the lack of trust that we don't have for one another. And there's reasons for that lack of trust when we identify it as lack of trust. And maybe we can come to a resolution. If you thought somebody hated you as opposed to you thought somebody didn't trust you, you might not be as willing and open to try and understand somebody who you feel hates you. But somebody who you feel you can't trust, you might be a little bit more open and understanding to hear and understand where the separation is, where the differences are, or where, more importantly, where the similarities are, as opposed to just honing in on the differences. So what I was saying, as far as a cycle, activism fails without capital. Capitalism is absence of character. It has no character, and character is not valued in our communities. And that is what breeds the distrust that I was just describing.
Okay, so I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. Distrust is definitely there. But the one thing that I don't agree with is when you're saying that we're mistaking hatred for mistrust. No, those are both there. There's mistrust, but there's also hatred. And the reason why I can easily prove this is when you're killing another black man because he has on a different color, or you're killing another black man because he has on a certain hat, that's hatred.
I don't think that's hatred.
But that's how you train your mind, though.
I think that's ignorant. I don't think that's hatred. I think if I was raised as a Crip in South Central LA and somebody else a few blocks over was raised as a Blood, that doesn't necessarily mean I hate him. You get what I'm saying? That means I'm ignorant to the fact that that's my own brother, and I've been programmed to think that I got to kill him over a block.
I think you're being taught. You may be ignorant. Look, you may be born into that and being taught that by your parents, but what they're teaching you is hatred that's been passed down. That is still hatred.
I think it's I'm gonna go against you again on it. Not saying that you're wrong. I'm gonna just push back, because hatred to me is you hate something about somebody so much. I don't have I'm from New York. I don't know where y'all from, but I'm from a neighborhood where friends grew up together. I'm talking about we know each other names, we know each other mothers, we know each other friends, we know everything about each other. And by the time we get to high school, we done took two different paths, and some might be Crips and some might be this and some might be that. And because now we in this gang, it's not that I hate them, like, yo, I really want to help my friend right now, but I can't because the gang that I'm siding with is so ignorant and they're just on go time. And now I got caught up in a situation knowing that I shouldn't have done the right thing and try to save my friend, but I couldn't save him because now my gang member is going to look at me like I'm the bag. You get what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm a snitch, so I'm not good enough to be in that game.
Let me give some pushback to that, because I agree with Angry Man here. The reason why it's hatred is because we always, when black people bring up the words hatred, historically, we associate that with slavery. We associate that with white people, and the effects of hatred that we always speak to is someone getting killed. So when murder comes into play, when people's lives are taken, to me, that's hatred. When you're willing to take a person's life. When we bring up examples of why we were ostracized by these other communities, we bring up lynchings and we bring up murders. We don't bring up ideology. We bring up the action that they did behind it.
But I hear you.
Hold on. And the action that we bring up often is murder, to say that those people hate me. So if you are killing somebody that looks like you, whether it's indirectly, whether it's subconsciously, whether it's through ignorance, that action is an act of hatred. Of those Bloods, this rolling 60s, they hate the hatred against the Crips. They're not seeing color. They're seeing this person embodying everything that's against me, and that's hatred. Because a lot of times I feel like we confuse prejudice with like racism. Like, nobody got to like you. But it becomes hateful, it becomes racist, it becomes demonic to a degree when you're willing to stop my life and stop me from progressing. And I have to agree with Angry Man. I think that's hatred.
And I have to disagree. I have to push back on both of you. I have to hold on. Y'all both went. I have to push back on both of you, as the gentleman just said. It's not specific. It can be hatred, but you just finished saying, angry man, in your own words, that if two lions, they'll kill another lion, but once they fill. So that wasn't hatred. That was just starving. So
well, yeah, that's
wait,
but that's what most people are
doing.
doing. Most people
And
starving.
the point that I'm making is the ignorance that he just described. Y'all are blanketing and conflating it together with the act. And the act of murder doesn't always come from hatred. The act of killing doesn't always come from hatred. So how can you say that it's hatred when in fact you're not digging deeper? When in fact you're not digging deeper to the root of why they did it.
Wait, check this out. Hold on. Let me put you on the game, right? So first of all, most crimes when it comes to murder are crimes of passion. Okay, there's a thin line between love and hate. You understand what I'm saying? If you see somebody, like you look at the Rich Porter situation. In that situation, everybody that did something to another person or tried to kill another person was people that knew each other. Rich Porter's little brother was kidnapped by his uncle. Apple kidnapped him, right? Because he wanted money from Rich. When Rich went to go get money, Alpo ended up killing Rich. When AZ messed around and got shot up, it was his sister's boyfriend that did it. You understand? When you have the capacity of love, you got the capacity to hate too. And love can really quickly turn into hate. You understand what I'm saying? So when you see these type of things going on, it's not business as usual. Some people will say, okay, I'm doing this because it's just business. It ain't personal. With us, it's always personal. It's never business with us. You feel what I'm saying?
Real quick. If I kill you, if I kill somebody out of jealousy, is that considered hate? Or if I kill somebody out of fear, is that considered hate?
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
it's not.
But
jealousy is not considered
jealousy
hate.
is not hatred. Envy is not hatred. Greed is not hatred.
Anger
those
is not
things you
hatred.
just described in each of those
Derivative
scenarios.
of hatred. There's something under the heading of hatred. Because if you're willing to
that's arguable.
Yo, if jealousy was a person, hatred would be its twin. They would have shared a womb, bro. Come on,
but they're not the same person.
But they're not. Jealousy is its own thing. Fear is its own thing. So I can be in the gang because I'm scared. Look, I can be in a gang in my neighborhood because I'm scared to walk down the street in my neighborhood. And just so happened the other gang member runs up on me, and out of fear, I killed this man, even though I was just scared in my own neighborhood. Was that hatred? No.
Exactly.
And that's why I said what I said earlier. When I was told it's not that
premeditated stuff.
No, when I was told it's not that deep, that's the point of what I'm making, right? Like he just said, right? I'm joining a gang because I'm scared to walk in my neighborhood, right? So the outcome of you thinking I'm scared, right? Because we're not healing through those things and talking to proper people, your adjustment is I have to join a gang. But you can talk to an older person and say, look, I'm scared of what I'm going through. And that older person can give you a whole nother output on how to answer that question. That's why I always say, when you go through something, what we do is we do not fix the problem. We just do something else magical. Where Black people are so used to not performing all the time, we don't know when to just heal and just be a normal person. Black people are always performing. So that's why that's why I was saying, like with the food and things like that, when we talk about being together, before you can even be together, yourselves have to be working properly together first before you can even think about operating as a team completely as a unit externally. So that's why I know it may not seem that deep, but it is, because we at the worst capacity of our children when it comes to how we're being exploited. But the food is the worst it's ever been. When it comes to the fruits that we eat, pesticides, when it comes to the foods that at least that y'all ate back in the day when y'all had the cereals, they was real food. Now it's straight drugs. Everybody around here is walking around here damn near high and crackheads and zombies and don't even know that. So that's why I was saying is when you make these choices, it comes and stimulates from when I say, hey, if I walk in, if I'm saying, hey, I don't trust my dad, I don't trust my mom. That's where it comes from, right? Or I hate my mom, I hate my dad. You take that outside and then you attach it to something else. That becomes I'm afraid. Now I'm about to walk down the street. I'm afraid. Let me join the gang. Later down the line, that becomes you joining the gang and then you getting shot or you shooting somebody else. When we could have just fixed the problem when that 7-year-old first said, I don't trust you, dad. Why you not here? Or mom and dad, like y'all need to get y'all shit together, or whatever the case may be. We're taking our problems and not healing them. So we don't know how to properly assess how to first we not even know how to breathe properly. So that was the point of why I said we're operating off the spirit of lack, not just from not having, but just from lack of nutrients that we need to think and that we need to accelerate. How are we going to become masterful people and we don't even eat the diet that feeds the cells that need to tell us what to do? So that's why I was just.
So are you saying because are you saying that in those environments, and I just want to say, whether or not that individual is acting out of hate, the culture in which he's acting is a hatred. So whether you're in a gang because you're scared, the gang culture is hate. So whether with the action in itself, your reasoning could be different, but the act to take someone's life is hate. It's never considered.
Yes, and that. But the thing is right.
Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
So what you were saying about the things that we're eating, you could have a great diet. You can say, hey, I'm scared to walk in the Cabrini Green projects because this is happening. There is no resolution to that environment that somebody can give you wisdom or anything. They could say, take the back alley. They could say, but if your environment calls for killing or calls for hate act because you're in an environment that calls for that, regardless of what you eat, you could be on the best vegan diet in the ghetto.
Check this out.
But hold on. Let me answer. Let me just answer. Let me let her finish so I can answer what she's saying. Hold on. Yeah. So I wasn't just blaming it on the diet though. I said that when it comes to the things that we go through, right? Before you even make, because there's always more than one decision that you can make before you shoot. Because I know when it comes to some of the men that I know, right, there are men that do those type of things, but then there's also men that's like, nah, I'm not going to do that anymore, because you go through certain things that shows you this is another option. So what I was saying was when it comes to the diet, I'm just making the recognition that the reasoning of why we're so worse off is just because the food is completely, it's straight drugs. We are lacking nutrients. It absolutely does affect how we think and how we move, because I also nanny with children. I see the difference in how children are when they eat the proper diet for how they're supposed to be. And I see the difference in children who don't. And I see the difference in adults. I've literally seen adults think completely like this. I've seen killers become a completely different person once they change their diet. So that's not the only thing. Of course, if you don't have the other, if you're more strong in your mental than your physical, obviously the mind will be able to trick the body more, even if you are eating more. So I wasn't more so saying that's for everything. I was just giving a simple point, because there's not just one answer to this. I was just giving a small point of one of the issues. There's so many I could go through. I was just more so bringing I'm sticking to one point in that. That's it. Not to solve everything. But it does help, and that can help a certain amount of people who operate body first. I operate body first through food. There's people who operate mind first. There's people who operate soul first, and your job is to align them as we go along. So I was just saying part of the problem. I can't even say all. We don't even have enough time for me to say all. I'm saying a small part of what we could possibly do.
I got you.
That's all.
I completely disagree. And the reason why I disagree is because this thing that we got going on here in America, and people keep ignoring it. It didn't just start.
What
here.
thing? I'm sorry. What thing? I just want to make sure I understand.
This thing with us hating each other. It didn't just start here. It started in Africa a long time ago. And
absolutely.
Back then we had the proper diet. So it's not look. It's the thought.
No,
look,
I'm not gonna say nothing. I would have said something. I'm not saying nothing.
It's the thought process, right? Irrespective of your diet, and I get what you're saying, and that does have certain effects depending on what chemicals is getting in your body. But there's a place in Nigeria called Makako. It's like these slums that sit on the water, right? and it's a bunch of impoverished black people. They don't have nothing, right? They even, for a bathroom, they actually defecate in the water that they're sitting on. The water's murky, it's fucked up, right? They rarely have any crime there. Because what happens is if somebody commits a crime, like if somebody steals something from somebody or somebody fights somebody, the rest of the people will go grab that person, take them to the chief, and the chief will judge them and basically say, you can't live here no more. You got to go. Now, the reason why they operating like that is because they're operating from a place of love and community. Okay? When you look at what we got going on in our hoods, we're not operating from a place of love and community. We used to. Now we're operating from a place of hate. And I've seen it with my own two eyes. You literally got, now my man, he said you want to go, but he said you from New York. What part of New York you from, fam?
Brooklyn, East New York.
Okay, so you should definitely know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? So when you got dudes that are rivals for whatever reason, this your block, this my block or whatever, and then somebody do something to disrespect you or do something that you don't like, or maybe you just don't like the fact they getting more money over there. Yo, what did Nas say? He said the project's talking that somebody gotta die shit. Somebody gotta die. I don't care who it is. A body needs to drop. I literally know dudes that had rivals and they'd be like, yo, somebody over there gotta go. You feel it? That's hatred. That's not natural. That's not normal. You feel what I'm saying?
I'm gonna interject one more time. I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna interject one more time. Hatred, that what you just said, somebody gotta die, that's ignorance, right? Hatred, I can hate something and still not do something stupid or kill somebody. For example, I can hate seeing my mother struggle. That hate for me seeing my mother struggle can make me go out there and do something positive. You get what I'm saying? So,
those two things are not. But those two things are not.
It's all about stimulating how you raise.
Now we're mixing up. Now we're
one at a time. One at a time.
All right. Let me give you one more example. Let me give you one more example. I'm gonna give you an example of me hating something, and then I'm gonna give you an example of me. I'm gonna give you an example of me hating an experience, and I'm gonna give you an example of me hating a person. I can hate watching my mother struggle, and that hate that I see of her crying, that pain will make me go out there and do something positive and make me so I can take care of my mother. I can hate somebody that's better than me in a sport. I hate that this person can keep beating me in basketball. That doesn't mean I'm going to kill him. I can take that hate and turn it into a positive and become better. Just because I hate something does not mean I'm going to do something violent.
Okay, but check this out.
Wait. Can I wait, Angry Man? Can I go, please?
Let me just address.
Wait. But you win already. I just want to go, please. The problem an issue that we're having, and I'm seeing developing right here, is we're arguing over semantics. And why?
I don't think we're arguing.
That's a semantic again. Again, you just linked to my point. Over semantics. Okay, I said argument. We're having a conversation that we're having conflict in, however you want to word it. And it's going nowhere because we're stuck on the wording.
No, absolutely.
I don't think that's why it's not going nowhere. I think it's the inability to acknowledge that two things could be true and move on. One person wants to say, my opinion is this, and then the other person is saying this instead of saying two things can be true. I can hate something and not do something. But the spirit around killing, the spirit of doing anything is a hatred spirit. So we can say it's this, we can say it's that. I hate this. It's many different ways it can show up. But I'm saying two things can be true.
Your point is correct, but you're doing exactly what I said. You're still going on semantics.
Okay, so number one, I'm not arguing, I'm building, right?
No argument.
I'm trying to get an understanding of what y'all are saying, and I'm trying to give you an understanding of what I'm saying. By the way, Sun God, big up Brooklyn. But look, here's the thing. When it comes to this, like the example you just made, and you're right to a degree, Sean, it is semantics. You feel what I'm saying? But we're trying to get an understanding of where we're coming from. When you said hatred for what your mother's going through, and I want to do something about it. Sometimes that hatred causes somebody to go outside and knock an old lady over the head and take her money.
That was his choice.
But that's how you.
But that's where it came from, right? That was the origin of it, right? You hating the circumstances and wanting to change it. Yo, you know how many of us hated our circumstances and chose to sell crack?
Mm-hmm.
You know, which then leads to you having rivals, which then leads to you having drama and beef, and then leads to you and this man having differences to where now you do hate each other. You see what I'm saying? So we're talking about the origin of something that can definitely be deemed as hate. You feel what I'm saying?
And let me say this real quick, because I feel like we're trying to like put a positive spin on hatred. And I feel like anything from hatred is still bad, because say if you're inspired from, like you brought up a point about sports, you could see a rival in sports and hate him so much that you push your body to the limit where you fuck your body up, because you're motivated from hate, not necessarily from trying to be the best person you can be. And just because somebody doesn't allow them to kill somebody, that doesn't mean hate wasn't used properly. It's just they didn't let the hate consume them. But hate is hate. Whenever you should never be inspired from fear and hate. Those two things should never inspire you could never take you to a good place, because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. So you may not kill somebody, but you can kill yourself in the process as well.
But you also got to understand where, because if you ever look at anybody that has done something like that, right? If you look at the history of somebody who does something like, okay, I hated my basketball teammate, he was better than me, I shot him. You could look at the history of that person and see that it came directly from something that happened to that person for them to even have the choice in their mind for that to be an option.
Mm-hmm. To her point, that's why I keep on emphasizing semantics, because we're not really digging deep into the root of it to get a resolution when we continuously get stuck on one way or the other. So to her point, we say hate, and then that's where it ends. Oh, it's hatred. No, it's deeper than hatred. It's definitely deeper than hatred. Because we didn't start out hating. We were born to
it had to turn into that.
So it turned into that, or it was learned behavior. It was something that triggered that hate, if that's the word that we're going to use. Now, how do we get to the root of what triggered it is more of where I'm passionate about. But it's kind of like there's gray areas in everything. I'm passionate about separating the white and the black inside that gray.
Okay, but
how much white is there? How much black is there?
Okay, but the problem is, regardless of where the source of that hatred came from, it doesn't excuse the hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start,
it doesn't excuse the act,
but
that happened as a result.
Listen,
but we're not
Sean, let him rock. Sean, let him respond.
Listen, that is a slippery slope. And I'm gonna tell you why it's a slippery slope. Because when you start going into those type of conversations and you start saying, okay, well, yeah, that person had some hatred, but where did it come from? It starts going into the conversation where it's almost like you're trying to get a justification for it or an excuse for it. No, you can't.
No, you know why it's not.
Look, the reason why you have it is because.
Hold on, Keith. He's right, because if we go with that train, hold on. If we're going to go with that train,
you about to say
we have to look at that excuses. Well, he's a boy, but he said he's a girl. But we don't.
That's
care.
not what I'm. That's not what I'm saying. Look, that's not what I said, though.
I'm not saying you said that. I'm talking about.
Go ahead. I'm gonna be quiet. Go ahead.
Hold on. I'm not saying you said that. I'm getting to the root of that type of thinking and how it could just open up Pandora's box.
No, go ahead. I'll talk after. Go ahead. I'll say it after.
It opened up Pandora's box of a lot of problems, because if we're just dealing with the surface, we're just saying, well, he's saying he's a boy, but he's saying he's a girl, and he wants to go in the girl's bathroom. So we're going to ignore that. We're going to just focus on why he feels that way. It doesn't matter how he feels that way, because his actions is endangering somebody else. So if we want to play that game, that's why we're in the position we're in today. because everybody
so
got a reason why
let
they
me
feel
ask
like
you.
this kind of way.
hold on, can I just answer that real quick? So my job, right? My job that I've been doing since I've been 21, right? Is when somebody call me, right, and they need to lose weight, I have to dig into where it comes from, right? And I'm not trying to make it, I'm not trying to make it a thing where I'm bringing a whole different topic to it. But the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying is because that person is already how they are. Understanding the reason of it, right? Whether it be, hey, this person is gay, or he wants to, excuse me, my language, this person wants to be a boy. That comes from several different things. The only reason why I'm saying that we need to know where it comes from is not to excuse the act of it at all. It is to see what the issue is so that we can teach others and be aware of it, right? So if a person is in that way, and I'm gonna try to wrap my point up because I know you want to talk to you, man. But if a person is that way, that can come from a hormonal, that can come from the diet of what that mom and dad ate, whether the man ate a certain diet when that sperm came out of him, and whether a woman ate a certain diet when that egg was born. The hormones in that, and where those human beings are stimulating from when they develop the baby is how the child is going to be. And it can come from trauma, it can come from a whole bunch of different things. So it is important to know to understand this, because when you can be able to reroute the energy when you know where it's coming from. So if you said, I hate my mom, I hate that my mom has to work, and you go and become better, or you say I hate that my mom has to come to work, and it turns to hatred outside, knowing that, oh, you know what, that came from seeing my mom go through this and that. That is not what what's going on right now in my face with this man being this. That has nothing to do with that. Let me redirect that and handle this situation so I can control my thinking.
I gotta
better.
interject.
That's
one time.
it.
I gotta
That's it, and I'm
interject.
done.
The reason why I gotta push back on that, I'll give you this example. Because what you're basically saying is you get to the root problem, basically what they're around, what they eat, and what they're exposed to is ultimately going to determine their decision making.
Not ultimately. No, I never use ultimately. I said part of.
I'm saying, but you're saying, based on what I eat, based on what I experience in my life, can alter and change the outcome of my decision making, right?
Well, no,
that's not what I'm saying.
What she
That's
said,
not what I'm saying.
What
I'm
she
saying
said,
that
what she said was she was giving a specific example of diet and using it as an analogy. She wasn't being specific to everything. So, and she's right though. She was saying you got it. All she was trying to summarize is you got to get to the root of the issue to get to a resolution. That's what she was trying to summarize.
because I literally been getting paid to help people reverse their thinking.
This is my pushback on that. Well, I feel like regardless of what we put in our body, it's a choice. Look at the slaves, right? We always talk about slavery, but let's talk about the actual slaves. The ones who actually went through slavery actually had whips on their back. Because we always talk about we're a product of slavery, even though we never felt it. We always talk about our problems come from PTSD, come down through the generations of slavery. The actual slaves with the actual whips on their back, who had the worst diets, when they were freed, all they did was start to love each other and work together. So sometimes it's not about what you've seen, what you ate, and what you was exposed to. It's about a choice you make to work together or not. Because they ate way worse than us, and they was exposed to way more atrocities than us, and they didn't take that hatred that they received and transfer it into the community.
And that's my point right there. That's my
right,
point right there. My point right there was what you just said. They didn't take that hate they received and transfer it into the community. What did they do with that hatred that they received? Even though they had hatred, they was beaten with hatred. They had hate. They was eating hate. They took it and they transmuted it and turned it into good. And that's my point. You can have hatred in you. Doesn't mean you're going to do a hateful act. It all depends on the decision
that is a first of all, that is like I said.
You can have hate in you can have fear in you, you can have lust in you, you can have anger in you, you can have greed in you, you can have all those things and turn it into good. You can have fear in you. You can have fear. Let me tell you one of my fears. One of my fear is not that I will die, because we all gonna die. Everybody has an expiration date. One of my fears is I won't be around enough longer to teach my daughter what she needs to know. So how do I conquer this fear? How do I beat this fear before it beats me? I can let this fear swallow me up and make me do something stupid, or I can attack the fear before it attacks me and actually be there with my daughter, teach her. Same thing with the hatred that I have. If I have hate for somebody, now that I know that I have hate in me, now that I came to the conscious decision that, damn, I hate somebody, What can I do before this turn ugly? I can transfer that hate and transmute it and turn it into something good. I can use that hate for motivation. I can use that hate for destruction. I can use that hate for growth. I can use that hate for self-development. You can use good energy, bad energy for both good things or bad things. That's my whole point.
This is getting goofy. This is getting
Go ahead,
fucking
Al.
goofy. First of all, you're talking about the slave being treated hatefully. The slave was psychologically programmed to love his master. So he didn't even process what he was doing as hate. You know how long it was after slavery that black people had to finally process that they was hated?
But what does that matter? It was hate.
It matters.
What does that matter? It was hate.
How do you know? How you know they didn't process hate? Angry man, how you know they didn't process hate?
Let him.
I gotta leave, y'all.
Go ahead, Al.
I gotta go, y'all.
Get to the last.
Thank you for having me on, E. I gotta head out.
Okay.
I gotta
Thank
know
y'all.
that
Nice meeting y'all.
hate to feel it.
All right, peace, peace.
Okay.
Peace, y'all.
First of all, you're talking about a group of people that were bred into a certain lifestyle, that were taught religiously to obey their earthly masters. They did not process what was being done to them as hate, which was the whole reason why, by the time when you go into Reconstruction and then you go into Jim Crow, you don't start seeing black people pushing the black love agenda. And when it comes to self-love, you don't start seeing that until the damn 60s. You don't start seeing black people appreciate being black until the 60s. You literally had black people trying to make their hair look like white people. You literally had black people operating in a certain thought process. I'm not saying that what was being done to them wasn't hatred. What I'm saying is they were not processing it as hatred. They were processing it as that's just the way things are. That's just the way life is. Okay. But the reason why I said that it's a slippery slope is because when you start having that conversation about, okay, well, yeah, that person hated that person, but where did that come from? Oh, it's because they had a bad childhood, or it's because they had this, or because they had that. Human psychology dictates that when you start talking like that, you start to show empathy for the person for their hatred. And once you get there, now you start going into making excuses. Now you start going into making justifications. Now, if you're going to do that, we can go all the way back to Africa being one of the richest continents on earth, and a group of people coming out of mountains being jealous of what they had and developing a hatred. So we gonna make excuses for their hatred too?
I don't think you should make excuses for any hatred. But I do think those slaves knew what was going on. Like somebody in the comments said, come on now, they were rebelling, escaping. They were aware of what was happening to them. They wasn't just born into slavery and they were just dumb and just thought that this was just life. Them people were smart. The slaves was teaching the slave masters how to read. The women were breastfeeding the slave masters' children because they couldn't get the breast milk. Like these were highly intelligent individuals that was just in bondage. They were singing songs, they were carving, they were braiding hair and putting maps to escape in the hair. Like they were highly intelligent. So they knew what hate was. They knew what love was. They knew what freedom was. You get what I'm saying? So I don't think that they just found out what hate was in the 60s and then now, oh, well, this is hate. No, the people knew what hate was.
That's not what I said. Like, see, here's the thing. It's a complicated issue, right? It's a very complicated issue. And the problem, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, is we look at the past and we have this tendency to romanticize it and try to make it seem like it was better than what it was, to try to rationalize it. But you got to think, we still have some of those effects today.
Of course.
We still have some of those. What do you think? Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard this saying, the white man's ice is colder?
I never heard that saying.
Yeah.
I'm about your age. I'm so yeah.
So there's this stigma that comes from that. So you got to ask yourself, if we're still being affected by that to this day, how bad was it back then? Because yeah, there were slaves that there were slaves that rebelled, right? But you got to realize not every slave was the same. You had some slaves that were brought later that were already educated, that were already smart, that already could read Arabic and all different languages. But you also had slaves that loved their master so much that if you came and taught somebody how to read something, they would go tell the master on you. There was some slaves that they would use to beat you. There was some slaves they would use to go catch you. So I'm not trying to say all of the slaves in totality just was docile. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that we were psychologically programmed to think that what was being done in hatred was acceptable, was cool, was fine. You feel what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
Angry Man, your points are relevant. Where I get confused sometimes, the way I get thrown off is that you apply them in certain sectors. And what I mean by that is that what you just said still goes on today. And I think we agreed to that earlier. And I guess what Sun God is trying to get to, and the sister who just who left us was trying to get to, is how do we get to some resolutions? Now you said there's a slippery slope, but to me, I look at it like this. You're absolutely right. It's a slippery slope, but in order to get anything level, you got to level that slope in order to not slide. So if you're not willing to level the slope, then we're going to continue to slide, and that's why the cycle continues. And that's why I keep saying we keep on talking about it, but we keep on going in these circles. We sometimes get tripped up on semantics, as I was pointing out earlier. We sometimes get caught up on the details of education and what we have learned from the past. But we can learn the past, but when do we use that knowledge that we get to propel our future? And that's really what Sun God was trying to say, is that we have to get to the points of understanding it, not excusing it, not using it as a scenario, but to understand it so that we don't continue the cycle. Because right now, all I see and all I hear often sometimes in this conversation and in many conversations is the continuous cycle of these nuances that we have while we're, as you said, building. Well, and so we don't ever get to a places of at least suggesting how we get away from it, or how we set the foundation or set the standard to build on top of.
You know why?
Let me interject real quick. Because I know it's getting late. I don't want to hold you guys up too late. I think a lot of people have come with solutions. We've been getting solutions from Malcolm. We've been getting solutions from Martin. We've been getting solutions from Malcolm X, Farrakhan, Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Garvey, Angry Man, Sean, Lucky, Sun. I think people always come with solutions. I think the fact that we're not seeing them manifest is, I think it's something about the choices that we're making, and it's something internal that's not external, because all the solutions are here. The universe always sends someone with a solution to make us think in a different way, but yet we keep doing the same things because we have adopted a certain culture of self-hatred. And no matter who comes along, if that's what you personally choose to do, that's what you personally choose to do. And I think most of it has just chosen to be self-capitalists and selfish people and greed. We just chose greed over our brother because solutions are here, but we're ignoring it because that's just what we want to do.
No, the problem is, you know, what he's talking about with the slippery slope. How do we come to a solution, and why do we keep going in circles? The reason why is because we're full of shit. That's the reason why. Like
some of us
at
are.
the end of the day, and this goes back to the conversation that's being had. The reason why, and this is why I keep harping on this. When we look at the ghetto, when we look at the hood, whatever you want to call it, and we see Black people engaging in hateful acts, we're always trying to figure out why they're doing what they're doing instead of nipping the shit in the bud and creating examples to put a stop to it. And I know that seems harsh, but if you go back and you look at the Haitian Revolution, one of the first things they did is they figured out who was problematic and they got rid of those people. I know that seems fucked up, but it's just the truth. We can't, there's too many times somebody is engaging in certain behavior over and over and over again, which is really hateful behavior. And then what we do is we say, well, why are they like that? They're like that because of this circumstance or because of that circumstance, or, and then what happens is when you talk that way to that person that's actually doing it, that becomes their justification. I'm not talking about us here. We obviously have a level of consciousness where we can understand and comprehend these things. But when you have people out here that are doing bad behavior or doing something that's not conducive to the community, there's always 1,000,001 people ready to tell them that it's not their fault and they're only doing it because of their circumstances.
Angry man, you're absolutely right. And it circles us right back to the original point of this conversation, which was Katt Williams and why he exposed the gatekeeper, so to speak, or the gatekeepers. And that's exactly why, because there's so many people that are full of shit. I asked earlier.
Hold that thought, Sean. Let's just go to this clip, and then we could respond to this, and then we could wrap it up, because I know it's getting late, and I definitely appreciate you all contributing. But let's just play this one last clip, because we spoke about some things that is kind of embody this clip, how we made it a color thing, and in this particular clip, Katt is talking about somebody that's not necessarily Black, that still is blackballed and still gatekeep. So I just want you guys' opinion on that real quick.
About.
Facts.
That's hilarious that Gary Owen just proved my point.
Yeah, and your point is valid. That's why I said you just kind of reeled it in from the original topic that Illa and Lucky came up with for us to discuss. And you're absolutely right. There are the simplistic way to address it. There are so many people who are full of shit. And there are so many people who are quote unquote in power that are full of it. But that's why I asked the question when you said, what's a gatekeeper to me? I said, does a gate really exist? And the reason why I said that is because I had an instance today that happened. And it was a gatekeeper. And it wasn't in the industry, but it was in some business that I'm doing. And I've been trying to get with this person, this company for some time. And they kept giving me the runaround. I happened to go on my spirit and got there, and the owner happened to be there. So I was getting all this resistance, and I spoke with the owner, and he gave me no resistance whatsoever. Meanwhile, I'm thinking the owner or the people who were in charge, quote unquote, or who I was supposed were the people who were the owners. I actually got to the owner and realized that he didn't even have any inkling that there was a gate there. And that's why I said earlier, is there really a gate? Because if we're speaking to those, most of the time, they're like, oh, come on in. That's why they get those people who are gatekeepers and gave them opportunities, because they thinking that's who is the person who is going to help me get to where I'm trying to be. They're not realizing that there's a real person who actually has more influence, who actually has more ideas, more creativity than that person who they have gotten contact with. So they're thinking that this person is their upper echelon of who they're looking for to capitalize on what they want. But they're not realizing, because the gatekeeper is disguising, removing, blocking that person who actually is not even, don't even see a gate. He ain't put no gate. He just hired somebody. And then that person becomes this quote unquote gatekeeper.
Do you think that it's a situation where, let's say that person has a boss, because everybody has a boss, that person in the position of power is acting as a gatekeeper. Maybe it becomes a gatekeeper whether there's a person above them or not, because once you expose it, now you're deemed untrustworthy in the industry, because a lot of people are like that. So if I'm asking just for everybody, is the gate really a person, or are there people in positions of power keeping this type of situation happening? Because I could stand up and say, hey, I'm not doing it, or whatever the case may be, but then I also could do it and say this happened to me, or I can expose this happening, for example, with Christian Keys. But like he was kind of saying and hinting around, I also have to feed my family. I'm also, you know what I'm saying? All these, if I blow this whistle, I'm also not going to be able to be in this industry no more. So I probably should get a 9-to-5 job. You get what I'm saying? So
Well,
do you think the gatekeeper is one person, or is the system once you tell this is happening?
The gatekeeper, this is what's funny about this. It's going to sound really messed up, but I got to say it. The gatekeeper is not the devil. It's the devil's helper.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Because the devil will let you walk through the gate. You feel what I'm saying? Because his mission is manipulation. And in order to manipulate, you got to be around the person to manipulate it. You feel what I'm saying? So like, it's kind of like, remember Django? Calvin Candy didn't have no problem with Django staying in the house. Steven didn't want him in the house.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So it's that's what it is, right? Like these industries and these different things, like they don't have no problem with people coming in there, because the whole purpose, they need people in there in order to either capitalize on them or utilize them or whatever. Because at that level, people love the network. It's the house Negro that thinks he's more special than every other Negro that wants to close the door behind him so that can't nobody else get, you know, the accolades or the Scooby snacks or the pat on the head that he gets.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is.
So you would say it's like and I wouldn't say house nigga, but because you could be another race. So, because I look at it like this, let's get out of Hollywood. I always use the manager at Walmart.
Yeah.
When you become a manager, you become authoritative in anything. A cop, nothing worse than a black cop. We mentioned NWA earlier. I think it's a position of being in power that you're not used to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, power.
Yeah, so I think it quid pro quo. Like they tell you these things, but if you really say this happened to me, I'm definitely going to retaliate when it comes to your career. So I also, I'm glad that y'all said that, because I think, like you said, I think you can come in. We need your influence, but also the people that control media, that control all these. I don't think people have been saying the Rothschilds. I don't think people like this have even met those people. You know what I'm saying? I think people that work for them, that kind of keep that. Go ahead.
Yeah, people are not, everybody's not suited for power. Everybody's not supposed to have a position of power. And whenever a person that's not supposed to have a position of power gets it, they most certainly abuses it. You feel what I'm saying? So like you look at it like for instance, there's gatekeepers here on YouTube.
Definitely. You took the words out of my mouth. This is a powerful platform.
Yeah, in these spaces that we're in, there's gatekeepers at all levels. Like, but I don't worry about the gatekeepers because, as my grandmother used to say, you don't have a ladder tall enough to stop my blessings. You feel what I'm saying? So I don't worry about the gatekeepers, but I still see them. They're there because if they're given an opportunity to put a gate in front of somebody, they're going to do that, because that's also an extension of them displaying their pseudo power. If I can stop you from doing something or stop you from being here or networking with this person, it makes that person feel powerful. You feel what I'm saying?
And I also think, think that if you guys notice, I feel like sometimes based on our people's mindset and how we're kind of like raised through television, and we kind of, it's like when people think if I talk a certain way, that means I'm intelligent. Like people talk with a certain cadence, they talk with a certain tone. They think that this makes me sound smart. I think a lot of our people, when we get a little power, we get a little authority, we think that being gatekeepers or being extra or trying to push people down. We think that's actually what we have to do, or we think that's actually being professional, or it's like we associate what we see on television, and we think exploitation is good business type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Because they don't understand they don't understand what real power is, right? So when a person is powerful, like say a king, a good king is the servant of his people. You see what I'm saying? A good king makes sure his kingdom is straight. Now, a horrible king is going to abuse his power, behead his people, do all types of wild shit, right? So at the end of the day, like with us, we're not suited to the reins because we're so used to being subordinate. So whenever we do get a position of power, in most cases we abuse it. And just like you said, you see people here on YouTube, if they read a few books, if they get which is why I have a real issue with a lot of college educated Black people, because I feel like when they get that degree and they get that college education, they turn into this thing that they think they're above you. You know what I'm saying? And they like, there's even content creators I've heard, they'll be talking about something and they'll use a $20 word and then they'll say, look it up. And it's like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, bruh, like that's not a man of the people speaks the people's language. So you don't use a $20 word when a $5 word will do. And you definitely don't condescend to people by telling them to go look it up. If they're watching you and you use a word, motherfucker, explain it to them so maybe they can learn something. You feel what I'm saying? But cats be thinking that they
gatekeepers the information.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
That too. Like that's one of the biggest issues that we had is Gen Xers. A lot of the guys that was older than us that knew how to do certain stuff, they wouldn't tell you. They was afraid you would become their competition.
That right there that right there is the root of a lot of what we're speaking of. And the root of what I was sharing earlier is a lot of the mistrust that we don't have with one another. They call it crab in a barrel. They have a lot of different wordings to describe it. But the point is that we don't have a trust for a lot of different reasons. Some legitimate, some are emotional, and some are, cultural, so it and so on. But the point that I'm making is that in order for us to connect, and I'm glad that we're all here, still sitting here, having these conversations, as you said, Angry Man, where we're still building and where we didn't allow our feelings to interrupt that, our differences to interrupt that, because that's what happens often. And we kind of like, sometimes it didn't happen here, obviously, but a lot of people I see, they get this power and they talking and they're really spoiled brats. They're really, when they don't get their way, they fuck that, and I don't give a fuck. And that's the end all to them. That's having a tantrum. That's having a verbal tantrum. The same way a woman be like, point blank, period. Blah, 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 blah. That's these are temper tantrums that us as children did, as we did as children, and we just haven't matured from it. And really, the maturity that we displayed today here, where we had differences, but we were still able to build and communicate, is absent in a lot of these spaces and places. And I just challenge us all to bring it together as we are doing and do this more often. Go ahead.
Most of the spaces here are not having intellectual conversations. No. So the reason why we're able to do it on Philosophical Show is because he's having an intellectual conversation. And as far as long as I've known the brother, he seems to always want to have a intellectual conversation and not entertain foolishness. So whenever you go to these other spaces, if you go on a panel, whoever runs the panel, their energy is going to determine in most cases what the conversation is going to be, especially if they allow ignorance and foolishness or whatever. Now, don't get it twisted. I'll jump down in the mud with them in a second and get the cursing and screaming and all of that shit. You feel what I'm saying? Because that's just the energy of the space. You feel what I'm saying? But you're right. We need to be able to have more intellectual conversations where we're actually saying something meaningful and productive instead of just venting and cursing each other out because we're frustrated as a people that we're not able to do this or we're not able to do that. You know, you got some people that'll come here and they was just at work and they didn't like what their supervisor said. So now they're gonna come and pop on the panel and curse everybody out because they ain't like what their supervisor said.
And they had no smoke for the supervisor though, but they got all the smoke for you.
None.
You know what I'm saying? They had none. But I really appreciate you guys for coming up because, like Angry Man said, I know it's a lot of more eye-catching conversations, but that's just not who I am. I can't turn on the computer and become somebody that I'm not when the computer's off. So I feel like a lot of our people don't know how to think.
Yeah.
A lot of us, we want to tell people what to think, but don't realize we're talking to a demographic that doesn't know how to think, that can see information and not process it the right way. So I'm not trying to tell people what to do or how to think. I just want to display a cordial conversation of different minds where we don't leave the screen mad, talking to each other crazy. We can still have dialogue and still have a camaraderie regardless of our differences. I see a lot of these shows and it's like, you could tell that if they see each other, there'll be a problem if it popped off right there. I don't want to facilitate that. I want to show that it's possible for Black people to have different dialects, different states of mind, different religions, different beliefs, and can still have a conversation respectfully. You don't have to believe what I believe. You don't have to agree with me, but we do have to respect each other. So I really appreciate you guys coming. Is there anybody closing statements you guys want to make?
I want to say something.
Go ahead, Lucky. Go ahead.
I rather the tone in with the men. I want to say this when we were talking about solutions. My solution, and kind of what Angry Men is saying, I don't think that intellectual people who want to have intellectual conversations should continue to talk to people who don't. I think if you find yourself in that environment, demand those people to raise their vibration or get out of the conversation, kind of like what you said about a $20 word. I will encourage people, if you talking to somebody, Angry Man, on the panel and they talking too much and they should be asking questions, keep dropping $20 words. Let them feel uncomfortable. Like I might want to go pick up a book the next time I go challenge Angry Man. I would not want nobody who can't even have intellectual conversations with you often to take it there, or because then their understanding is off. They're going to hear emotional. You're going to say something about, I think your parenting should be this, and they're going to respond and say, don't talk about my kids. And it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like people who can't think outside of things, they always change the conversation. So I think a solution for me, and what I would say, is to separate. It's time to separate people who want to avoid telling truth, avoid standing on things, avoid a lot of things, even if it was you in the past or whoever, just not you, but just changing that environment around you and either demanding when people come here. Because, for example, if we all set a tone of a conversation, and let's say you drop a StreamYard link, whoever hit the link would have had to adjust to the tone. It's like coming in your house and you got white rug, a white couch. I know not to sit down. I know you gonna have to invite me to sit down, but if I come over and there's kids running around everywhere, I ain't gonna respect your environment. I'm gonna show up like it is. It's the kick it spot. So I think in this space and what we can control, it would be to set an environment where the people who should be asking more questions know that they should be asking questions, in my opinion.
Yeah, because most niggas is Rick James. They're gonna come and put their feet in your couch and look at you like you crazy because you telling them what you doing, bro. That's what they do. That's why I don't really have panels, because when I do my show, I'm trying to talk to my audience, and my whole thing is about trying to teach something. Now, I'll get on panels with people, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. Every time I get on the panel, I go with the intentions of having a conversation like this. It don't always go that way though. You feel what I'm saying? It don't always go that
Because
way.
everybody don't have what they saying. American Gangster. That's $25,000.
And a lot of people in this
They don't
space,
have
Anchor Man, they just trying to make a moment off of somebody. You know what I'm saying? So they invite you to the panel to get you to engage in something, to get you to go crazy. And now they done created content off of controversy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not trying to compete with nobody. I'm not trying to upstage anybody. Like, that's why sometimes, like when y'all was going at it, I just let y'all go, because it's not about me. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to facilitate conversation. If I jump in, I'm not trying to make it all about my face on the screen. You know, it's my channel, but it's about the conversation. And sometimes if somebody got more to offer in that moment, I can take a step back. You know what I'm saying? I want the people to get something out of it. And I'm not trying to compete with somebody. I'm not trying to upstage somebody. I'm not trying to embarrass people. I want people to feel comfortable talking to me when they come to my channel. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate Lucky. I appreciate Sean. You know what I'm saying? And I really appreciate you, Angry Man, because you really rocked out. You didn't have to do this. You know what I'm saying? You came through and chilled the whole time. You brought your team with you, and you didn't even have to do. I didn't even know he was going to do all that. You know what I'm saying? I was just happy for you to pull up. So this is real. You know what I'm saying? What you're doing is showing people how it's done. You could easily flex on me, but you still reaching your down to an up-and-coming content creator, and you're willing to come on my channel even though it's small, and that's real, and that's respectable, and that's why I fuck with you.
Wow.
Because I look, here's my thing with me. Like, I don't like, I've had dumb moments, right? Like, a dumb moment is I would go on a panel, and for some reason, a bunch of people would have smoke with me. And I'm like, what is going on? And it finally clicked, like, oh shit, niggas is trying to make a viral moment off of the angry man. Because when I come on panels, I'm not coming on a panel like, oh, I'm the angry man, I got X amount of subs, and I don't do that. I come just trying to participate and have a conversation. And I'm not thinking about the fact that somebody might be trying to make a name for themselves off of, I got into an argument with the angry man and all of that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Angry Man, I'm not. I want to follow you. I'm not familiar with you. It's a pleasure to meet you, though, because I really enjoy your perspectives. I wanted to share to all of y'all. This is something I wrote to someone, and it might apply to what you was just talking about, Lucky. It says 2024 is about structure, discipline, and standards, while staying humble. Also, communication without taking offense or reacting emotionally when offense is taken.
Who wrote that like that?
I did. That's my thing for 2024. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I've never, I want to say this too. I was subscribed to Angry Man because I heard about him, but I thought it was like male led, and I ain't got no business being over there. But I do like, if he speaks like this, I think I could be in the chat.
Angry Man,
no, I do
like
have
a lot, man.
Yeah.
He speaks like
I got there's I don't have a large female audience. I got I say about 18% of my audience is female. But I'm not always, I do talk about a lot of topics that pertain to men, but it's not just completely, totally male driven. Like, it's not one of those channels that you're thinking about. I know the ones you're thinking about where it's like, oh, these bitches, you know, it's not that.
No, I've been in a chat one time, and it was, I had no business being there. You know how you walk in and you see your uncles, and it's like, oh, I gotta.
Oh yeah.
That's what it was. So because I was in the chat and I was giving an opinion, and then your chat was like, no, that's just like a female, and I'm like, oh, okay. So then I realized in the conversation. So that was the only time I've been there.
Yeah, some women when they come in.
Maybe you can relate to this. Sometimes you realize that sometimes you can't help what you attract. It's like, you know, the message that you're giving out, but because brothers is so like, they feel like they never got a chance to speak, they hear your message and think that you on the type of time that you're really not. So they'll say the wildest shit. And it's like, bro, that's not what I meant by that. It's like, you know, sometimes you just can't help the type of guys you attract. And sometimes we attract some real extreme perspectives in this space, especially when you speak out for men. It's like, I think it's not a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the struggle I deal with every day. Well, I used to, but that's why I block people and stuff like that, because you got two types of brothers. You got the brothers that's genuinely hurt because they or went through some messed up experience with women, so they'll relate to the stuff I'm talking about that particular type of woman. But then you have some guys that'll come and watch that show, and it's just they get a kick out of the fact that I'm going in on that type of woman that day.
Exactly.
But them same guys, when I do the show where I go in on the fellas, that's when they get mad and they want to dip or they want to say something crazy, when I be like, yo, y'all got y'all goofy too. And I start going in on the fellas and shit, then you know, everybody want to start tripping. But I've kind of weeded that out. So, you know.
Well, I look forward to seeing your show. I haven't seen it. You know, a lot of the points that you was making, even when I pushed back, were valid. You know, and that's something that I have to acknowledge, because I often say that I try and look for similarities as opposed to differences. And I love to hear the similarities. And you said a lot of things that we have in common, and I agree with wholeheartedly. But I also subscribe to, just because I agree doesn't make us right.
Yeah.
And so I'm listening for other perspectives to broaden mine.
No doubt.
And I will say, you know, Angry Man was, and Sean, I'm not sure you know, but he is a good person, I would say, for this conversation, because if we can talk about YouTube, he's the only person that I've seen to acknowledge, and I'm sure I will correct me, creating a channel for other men to even eat off of, in the sense of having a voice, having their opinion, whatever that looks like. You know what I'm saying? So I would say, if we talking about gatekeeping, even whatever gate he may hold or didn't know, he definitely created a space. So I would acknowledge that for the topic.
Yeah, like I say all the time, AM is somebody I've been watching. Like all of these spaces, I ain't start watching their show until they invited me on their show. But Angry Man, me and my man will always talk about Angry Man, because it's like, it was like I could feel him, because it wasn't no cookie cutter bullshit, and it wasn't coming from some he-man, woman hater place. You could tell the difference between a dude who don't get women and mad because women don't like them, as opposed to a man who gets women but are frustrated with the way they carry themselves when they get them. It's two different conversations that get melded, because a lot, maybe, and I'm sure you brothers can relate to this. Red pill has nothing to do with gender. Red pill is about in period. And people that took the red pill and associated with just the gender war, when it's really a metaphor for just going outside of the mainstream society. It's just that most men who are going against mainstream society just happen to also see the ills in relationships. It wasn't about that. It's just about seeing through the matrix on all levels.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I'm definitely follow you, Angry Man. And I look forward to seeing your shows. Ill, thank you for having us. Lucky, always good seeing you. You're my Gemini sister.
Love you,
likewise. So I appreciate, and tell Sun God, if y'all see him now, I want to follow him as well, because he's from East New York, so am I. I was gonna ask him where, but it just didn't come up in conversation.
Word.
Yes. He's I think he stays down here in South Carolina now, because I'm in Charlotte. And so he's not too far from me at all.
No.
So hopefully me and him could do something in person too, because I definitely want to do some with everybody I've ever had on the show. I always want to do something one-on-one with you guys, because I feel like y'all all have a story that need to be told. Like AM, like I told you, I definitely want to interview you, because I've seen you on some panels, but I've never seen an interview with just you to get to know who you are, because I feel like there's so much more to us than just these panels, and people got to know we all have a story. And I really want to be somebody that not only facilitates conversations, but bring out people's stories to know who they are behind the camera. You know what I mean? So whenever you have time, Angry Man, I feel like you deserve your own show. Just let's get into the mind of who you are, how you got to where you was. I would love to do that with you, brother.
And Illa, I'm sorry, and I hope y'all get to do that, and I hope I'm there to witness it. But Illa, I was going to say to you, part of the reason why I said the gate earlier, I said, why is there really a gate? It's because I started out as an artist, right? And I was speaking directly to the president and owners of the labels. Then I went into being an executive. And I realized that I stopped speaking to them and started speaking to the people who I thought, which were the head of the departments, who I thought were the people I should have spoken to. And I realized that they were just gatekeeping to the person that I already was speaking to. And I wound up having to readjust my whole mindset because I'm like, yo, I started really not respecting them when everybody else was praising them. Oh, that's so and so, and you don't know who this is. And I'm like, man, I ain't talking to them. Yo, and I go talk to the person who they're talking to, and I get so much more accomplished. And I realized that I was creating the gate. I put this whole figment in my imagination of how powerful this person was because that's what their reputation preceded them, and that's what they wanted to be looked at. But when I look beyond that, I'm like, yo, you in the same position I'm in. As a matter of fact, I was in a better position being an artist than you are.
Than you.
Thanks. Well, any closing statements you want to make, Lucky, before we go?
No, I honestly think we do need gatekeepers. I just think it's a little flawed. I think there was a time in hip hop where it should have been gatekeepers, because I don't know who letting the Sexy Reds of the world in and no more R&B or no more. There's clearly somebody there. The gate is open. Something, I don't know. Something's going on where anybody could just be something. So I would argue now, is there a damn gatekeeper and what is the job? Because I want to know what
somebody paid them off. Whoever's at the gate, they got paid off, man. They let anybody in here, man.
You know, it's funny. That's why I used the word capitalism earlier so emphatically, because really the people who own it, they're only in it to make money. They ain't worried about the culture. They ain't worried about what you're thinking. They're basically and the people that they put in place are people who are facilitating or bringing them the money that they're worried about. So that's really what it boils down to. So they really ain't concerned with all of the politics, the activism, the hood. They're concerned with.
You're gonna make us go another hour because I'm gonna do a slight pushback. I think you're right, but I think the fact that they can just create money out of thin air, I think it is a capitalistic aspect to it. But I also think that they understand that we have, as Black people, we have a power to galvanize, and I think they take that. I think the main thing they want is our influence, and they try to use that to push their agendas through our ability to influence. So I think it's a money thing, but I think it's really an influence power thing, because whatever we want, the world follows.
I'm not disputing that, but the reason why I say it is because I was speaking with Daddy-O the other day, right? He was on a panel, and he brought up a good point. He said, yo, everybody in the music industry got jerked. Elvis got jerked. It wasn't about hip hop. It wasn't about Black people. It was about the money and those people providing the money, as we said earlier, abusing their power and the money that they were investing in. That's what it was about.
We're gonna have to have part two, Sean, because I think Red have some smoke for that.
You said Daddy-O. Is that somebody that's called himself Daddy-O, or is that Daddy-O from back in the day?
No, that's Daddy-O. Daddy-O. That's the Sonic Daddy.
That's Daddy.
One of the most self-destruction Daddy-O. One of the most intelligent rappers I have ever met.
Brother, you preaching. Wait, you preaching to the choir. I'm still tripping off the fact that you was on a panel with him.
Sean, let me know who you is, Sean. Hold up. Sean, let me know who you are, man.
Yeah. I'm Sean. I was in a group called 783 back in the day. 783 was the first rap group signed to a major label out here on the West Coast. We're from East New York, Brooklyn, which is where Daddy-O's from. Daddy-O worked on our first album and our second album. He produced a couple of songs on our first album, and it came out in 88, 89 is when our album came out. We had a lot of different accolades that we did, but we also grew up in the same neighborhood, which is in East New York. And so we had that connection. Plus we worked on several projects together, and he's a good friend of mine as well. And so we was just on a panel right before the new year, because we was wrapping up on Chuck D's. He has a podcast, and we was wrapping up all of the guests who had came on throughout the year on that certain show. and Daddy-O was one of the guests, and we were together, and me and him, me, him, Chuck, we have built. Matter of fact, we was trying to build something called the 12 Horsemen years ago, but it was basically a brilliant mind meeting of the minds thing, and helping out hip hop and helping out the condition of hip hop. And this was, like I said, at least a decade or two ago. And so we've always had the same mindset. And yeah, that's the Daddy-O that I'm referring to. And the reason why I say he's one of the first, and I publicly was able to tell him that last time we spoke, because he's the person who actually goes to the library in his leisure time to just sit and he is the person who's a Christian, but also has went ahead and looked into and been part of other religions, including Judaism, including Islam, etc. And he wound up sinking his teeth into Christianity, and that's what he stands by. But he lives by teachings from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, etc. So that's just a little brief. And big up Daddy-O, love him to death. And if we do this panel, maybe I'll try and get him on, and he could join us, and we can have a conversation. I think he'll be willing to do it.
No doubt, man. Daddy-O is a legend.
Serious hip hop talk, Angry Man, where we just go in on hip hop. It don't got to be nothing real controversial, but just almost just like just a conversation about music we like. I just want a real lighthearted, just appreciation for hip hop conversation. I definitely want you up there, Sean, and I definitely want you up there, AM, because you always playing them jams. So hopefully we can do that.
And to your point, Daddy-O always says, to Angry Man's point, we can't sit there and not take responsibility, because anybody in hip hop to this day and age, including Sexy Red, including Young Thug, etc., they're our children. And if we don't like what we see in them, then we don't like what we allowed them to be. We ain't taking that responsibility, because it's on us. They are our children, so to speak. I'm paraphrasing his words. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing his words. And he doesn't condone what she's doing, but he's like, yo, we can't sit there and just ostracize them for doing something that we allow.
I mean, Lil' Kim was out in 95, 90, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like this the first time we've seen it.
She wasn't Sexy Red, please.
I mean, she was there.
She was Sexy Red. She was a past version. You know how PG right now is null and it doesn't really exist.
Sexy Red is the evolution of that gate being open, I guess.
Yeah, she came out with the breast out with the little thing on it. That was like great. That was like groundbreaking back then. Like that was never seen. So Lil' Kim is definitely the godmother. And even take it back to the early 1900s. There was a lady from Baltimore. She used to do little dirty ass records back in the day. Like, you know, ain't nothing new under the sun. You know what I'm saying? So once again, I appreciate you guys for coming up. I know it's getting late.
Thank you for having us.
Shout out to Sean. Shout out to AM for hanging out with us this late, man. I really appreciate you guys, and we definitely got to do it again. Peace and love. Yeah. Any closing statements, Lucky?
No, I think we all gave them.
All right. Okay. Peace and love. We're gonna do it again. Y'all have a great night. Thanks everybody for pulling up. Thank you for joining the narrative. We out of here.
Peace.
The emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. The Center for Disease Control is reporting the outbreak of a new virus strain that is causing the infected to become extremely vicious.
On the west side, we're gonna do it to the east side, and we're gonna prove once and for all that all these people talking about the East Coast, West Coast war, they like the Judas was to Jesus. They only here to cause confusion.
We walked down the street to right there. It was just like in America. It was like incredible.
Also,
I get your order.
I didn't have no problem with Rich making $1,000, $2,000 off of me, because I was coming to spend $300,000-$400,000 with him.
Plus, we do a lot of cutting and shooting of each other, though we profess to be nonviolent.
got your women now. It ain't nothing we can't do today. But these things the dog got. I see dogs on television eating out of the same plate with white people. I see dogs in the buses, and they do everything with the dogs. So I ain't getting nothing the dog ain't got.
Wrong because it's pig action. See, they're doing exactly what the pigs want them to do.
Welcome the efforts of concerned citizens of all ages to stop the abuse of our environment.
Is be true to what you said on paper.
To Africans, to slaves and freedmen, coming over to the faith with some earnest.
Maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions.
Now, there's no biographical sketch, but I meet him on the day of the crucifixion.
Black married couples, families, more than a quarter of a century, every single year, at a poverty rate under 10%.
We shouldn't even be stigmatized with the word welfare.
Searching for weapons without search warrants in one of America's most dangerous public housing projects, the Robert Taylor home.
Nothing else to do but sell drugs because they ain't got nothing to do.